The Senate will please come to order. The Senate will please come to order. All those not having privileges of the floor will please vacate the chamber. And with those on the floor and our guests in the gallery, please rise as we are led in prayer this morning by Dr. D.W. Cummings. He's a senior pastor at Bethlehem Apostolic Temple in Wheeling, West Virginia. And then please remain standing as we are led in the pledge this morning by the senator from Wetzel County. Dr. Cummings.
Thank you. Dear God, we live in a world that is in a hurry for everything, including decisions. It is also a world that is increasingly quarrelsome and full of conflict. You have called these legislators and staff and governor to be decision makers. And sometimes when they are faced with the most difficult decisions, I'm sure that they may feel at times like running away and hiding. But with your help, you will guide them to make the right decisions that will benefit our entire state of West Virginia. We know you have called this special group of men and women to stand in your place as fair-minded adjudicators of order. Thank you for the example of your Son, who taught us to be deliberate in our search for the right answer. We pause in a moment of quietness to ask your Spirit to rest upon them and give them the courage to rise to the challenges that they could not do on their own. Help them not to be overwhelmed by the tasks which they face. In you, God, we claim the opportunity to be beacons of light in moments of darkness. And let us all remember, red, yellow, black, and white, we're all precious in your sight. Thank you for hearing our prayer. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Doctor. The senator from Wetzel County.
Will the members and staff on the floor and our guests in the gallery please join me in the pledge to the greatest nation on earth. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Reading of the Journal.
West Virginia Legislature, Senate Journal, February 19th, 2020. The Senate met at 11:14 a.m. Senator Carmichael, Mr. President, in the chair. Prayer was offered by the Reverend Jim Butcher, Madison Baptist Church, Madison, West Virginia.
The senior senator from the 16th requests unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read. Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Introduction of guests. On behalf of the Senate, it is my pleasure to welcome our honorary pages for the day. Please stand and be recognized when your name is called. As guest of the senator from Brooke County, we have Savannah Turner Davis, who, by the way, is the daughter of our pastor this morning. From the, as guest of the senior senator from the 5th, we have Laura Thomas and Caroline Davis. As guest of the senator from Boone County, Cassie Keith, Emma Richardson, Hannah Guthrie, and Jeffrey Rutherford. As guest of the senior senator from the 16th, we have Brianna Ryder and McKenna Shepard. And as guest of the senator from Mercer County, Lindsay Peters. They're all standing in the front of our chamber. If the Senate would give them a warm Senate welcome. Thank you. You may be seated. Further introductions. Recognize the senator from Marion County.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my honor today to introduce a former colleague in this body, former governor of the state of West Virginia, and now a United States Senator, Senator Joe Manchin, in the rear of our gallery. Please give him a warm Senate welcome.
Thank you. Further introductions. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Senate, it's my pleasure and yours to introduce our doc for the day. In the rear of the chamber, we have with us again Dr. Joseph Reed. I think this is, he either loves us a lot or he pulled a really short straw, but we appreciate you being here, and if the Senate would give him a warm welcome.
Further introductions. The senator from Brooke County.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the North Gallery, on behalf of myself and the Senator from Ohio, is the wife of Dr. Cummings and the mother of our page today, Letitia Cummings. If she could stand in the Senate, make her feel welcome. Oh, she's in the rear gallery. Okay.
Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Also, this time in the correct gallery, the North Gallery, is the woman that keeps me focused and motivated and driven and grounded in everything that I do, my wife, Alex.
Further introductions. The senior senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Seated in the North Gallery is my shadow intern for the day, Bobby Allen. She's from Southern Wayne County. She is a homeschooled senior. And Bobby, stand, if you will, Senate, please make her welcome.
The senator from Mercer County.
Mr. President, thank you, Mr. President. You've introduced our page from our district on behalf of Lindsay Peters. On behalf of the senior senator from the 6th, her dad, Frank, is in the President's Gallery. If the Senate would please make him feel welcome.
The senator from UPSHUR County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today from the 11th Senatorial District, on behalf of the senator from Nicholas, I'd like to introduce 4 people seated in the North Gallery. Dustin Zickafus, the Upshur County Assessor, Phyllis Yoakum, the Randolph County Assessor, Sherry Lewis, who works in the Randolph County Assessor's Office, and Mimi Riffle, the Upshur County Assessor's Office. They please stand, and the Senate give them a warm welcome.
The senator from Boone County.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the senator from Logan, we're very pleased to have the chaperones of our pages today. They are Mother Terry Rutherford and Stephanie Richardson. If they would stand, the Senate give them a warm welcome. Further, Mr. President, we're very pleased to have a couple of physicians, internists in the South Gallery, Dr. Laura Davison and Dr. Sarah Castillo, both at WVU. If they'd stand, the Senate give them a warm welcome.
The senator from Greenbrier County.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've got senior civic students from Oak Hill today here. If you all would please stand up. They are led by their teachers, Tiga Tony and Debbie Garvin. Will the Senate please make these students and educators welcome?
Further introductions. The senior senator from the 5th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the senator from Cabell and I are happy to have the Page's parents, some Page's parents that are here. We have Eric Thomas and I think Carrie Davis, if they would stand.
The senior senator from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the senator from Jefferson and myself, I'm very pleased to have with us today the chaperones of our pages. We have with the mother of McKenna, we have Norma Shepard, and also the parents of Brianna, we have Amanda and Jeremy Ryder, along with her sister, Bailey. If they would stand and receive a warm Senate welcome.
The senator from Harrison County.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of my senior senator from Braxton, it's my honor and yours to recognize some of the finest educators in this country from the Harrison County Education Association. If they'll stand when I call their name: Cindy Hudson, Dave Hudson, Connie Baker, and Michelle LaHasa. Please make them feel welcome and thank them for all they do for our kids.
Thank you. Are there further introductions? Further introductions. Communications from the House of Delegates.
The Clerk of the House announced the passage by that body of committee substitute for House Bill 2028, limiting supervision of laying of lines on state rights-of-way.
Message will be received and referred to the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4092, relating to foster care.
Message will be received, referred to the Committee on the Judiciary with a second reference to the Committee on Finance.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4099, eliminating the permit for shampoo assistance.
Message be received and referred to Committee on Government Organization.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4275. The House refused to recede from its amendments and asked the Senate to recede therefrom as it The House refused to concur in the Senate amendments and asks the Senate to recede therefrom as it relates to committee substitute for House Bill 4275, authorizing Department of Military Affairs and Public Safety promulgate legislative rules relating to the Fire Commission.
Message be received. Recognize the junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate refuse to recede from its amendments to House Bill 4275 and conference committee be appointed.
Junior senator from the 17th moves that the Senate refuse to recede from the amendments and asks that the chair be allowed to appoint a conference committee. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the motion adopted. On behalf of the Senate, the chair appoints the senator from Brooke County, the junior senator from the 17th, and the senior senator from the 8th. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
The Clerk of the House announced the passage by that body of House Bill 4450 relating to instruction permits issued by the Division of Motor Vehicles.
Message will be received and referred to Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure.
House Bill 4499 relating to multi-county trail network authorities.
Message be received and referred to Committee on Natural Resources.
House Bill 4504 relating to renewal application requirements for individuals with permanent disabilities.
Message will be received and referred to Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4537 permitting DNR to issue up to 100 permits for boats greater than 10 horsepower on Upper Mud River Lake.
Message will be received and referred to Committee on Natural Resources with a second reference to Committee on Finance.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4543 relating to insurance coverage for diabetics.
Message will be received, referred to Committee on Banking and Insurance with a second reference to Committee on Finance.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4620 redefining definition of recovery residents.
Message will be received and referred to our Committee on Health and Human Resources.
House Bill 4714, increasing the monetary threshold for requiring nonprofit organizations to register as a charitable organization.
Message will be received and referred to Committee on Government Organization.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4734, rewriting the article on registered professional nurses.
Message will be received and referred to Committee on Health and Human Resources.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4773, creating a work group to investigate and recommend screening protocols for adverse childhood trauma in this state.
Message will be received and referred to the Select Committee on Children and Families.
The House adopted the following resolutions naming roadways and bridges. House Concurrent Resolution 4, Committee Substitute for House Concurrent Resolution 13, House Concurrent Resolution 14, Committee Substitute for House Concurrent Resolution 17, House Concurrent Resolution 19, Committee Substitute for House Concurrent Resolution 20, Committee Substitute for House Concurrent Resolution 21, Committee Substitute for House Concurrent Resolution 32, Committee Substitute for House Concurrent Resolution 33, House Concurrent Resolution 34, House Concurrent Resolution 35, House Concurrent Resolution 38, House Concurrent Resolution 39, House Concurrent Resolution 45, House Concurrent Resolution 52, House Concurrent Resolution 53, Committee Substitute for House Concurrent Resolution 54, House Concurrent Resolution 55, House Concurrent Resolution 62, House Concurrent Resolution 65, House Concurrent Resolution 70.
Messages will be received and all referred to Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. Are there further communications from the House of Delegates?
No, sir.
Communications from the Executive?
There are none.
Reports from standing committees?
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 38, requiring schools provide elective course on Hebrew Scriptures or Bible, and reports back a Committee Substitute for same, with the recommendation that the Committee Substitute for Committee Substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 213 relating to administration of trusts and reports back a committee substitute for same, and Senate Bill 772 clarifying American Law Institute's restatements of law and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the two committee substitutes do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration committee substitute for Senate Bill 246, including family court judges and retirement system for judges. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 614, changing method of allocating funding from safe school funds. Senate Bill 816, updating North American Industry Classification System code references. And Senate Bill 828, clarifying municipal B&O taxation where business activity occurs, and reports the same back with the recommendation that they each do pass. Respectfully submitted, Craig Blair, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Economic Development has had under consideration Senate Bill 514, creating West Virginia FinTech Regulatory Sandbox Act, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Chandler Swope, Chair.
A report will be received.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration Senate Bill 530 relating to taxation of aircraft, and reports back a committee substitute for same, and Senate Bill 793 relating to B&O taxes imposed on certain coal-fired electric generating units, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the two committee substitutes do pass. Respectfully submitted, Craig Blair, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 635, allowing administration of small estates, and reports back a committee substitute for same, and Senate Bill 668, enacting Uniform Trust Decanting Act, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the two committee substitutes do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure has had under consideration Senate Bill 700, exempting physicians from specified traffic laws when responding to emergencies, and Senate Bill 827, relating to protection and repair of damage caused by oil and gas industry to state roads, and reports the same back with the recommendation that they each do pass, but under the original double committee references, first be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. Respectfully submitted, Charles H. Clements, Chair.
Report will be received. Under the bill's original double committee reference, be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration Senate Bill 739, authorizing PSC protect consumers of distressed and failing water and wastewater utilities, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Mark R. Maynard, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Economic Development has had under consideration Senate Bill 800, authorizing electric utilities construct and operate project within electric utility distribution system, and Senate Bill 831, clarifying Economic Development Authority Board enter into contracts necessary to carry out duties, and reports the same back with recommendation that they each do pass. Respectfully submitted, Chandler Swope, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure has had under consideration Senate Bill 819 relating to DOH management of coal resource transportation roads, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles H. Clements, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on the Workforce has had under consideration Senate Bill 839, originating in committee, relating to creating the State Advisory Council on Post-Secondary Attainment Goals, and reports the same back with a recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, Roland A. Roberts, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure has had under consideration Senate Concurrent Resolution 17, naming the U.S. Marine Corps Private First Class Manuel P. Marcos Memorial Bridge, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it be adopted. Respectfully submitted, Chandler Swope, Vice Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 4217, authorizing the Department of Environmental Protection to promulgate legislative rules, and has amended same and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Pensions has had under consideration engrossed House Bill 4600 relating to the definition of the term member regarding distributing premium tax proceeds, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, Michael T. Azinger, Chair.
Report will be received.
That's all I have, sir.
Are there reports from select committees?
There are none.
Introduction of bills?
There are none.
Resolutions?
Senate Concurrent Resolution 42 by Senators Mann, Carmichael, Mr. President, Baldwin, Blair, Jeffries, Prezioso, Romano, Swope, Takubo, and Weld, naming the U.S. Army Corporal Richard Warren Ellison Memorial Bridge.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Resolution 48 by Senators Swope and Maynard, recognizing the 125th anniversary of Bluefield State College.
Resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Resolution 49 by Senators Jeffries and Lindsay, designating February 21st, 2020 as West Virginia State University Day.
The resolution will lie over one day. Are there additional resolutions?
No, sir.
Motions? Petitions?
There are none.
Unfinished business?
Committee substitute for Senate Concurrent Resolution 19, naming the U.S. Marine Corps Lance Corporal Fred Michael Kearns Memorial Bridge.
Question before the Senate is adoption of resolution. Is there discussion? Not, all those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it, the ayes do have it. Declare the resolution adopted. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 27, requesting study on ways to make State Capitol building more handicap accessible.
Question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? Not, all those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it, the ayes do have it. Declare the resolution adopted. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Senate Resolution 47, recognizing the Clay County High School We the People team for winning its 6th consecutive West Virginia State Championship.
Recognize the Senator from Braxton County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution be placed upon its adoption.
Senator from Braxton County requests unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution be placed upon its adoption. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Clerk will please read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 47, recognizing the Clay County High School We the People team for winning its 6th consecutive West Virginia State Championship.
The question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? The Senator from Braxton County.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is something that I'm indeed honored to talk about. You know, we talk about our education in West Virginia and some of the things that we wish we could do better in, but we've got a high school in Clay County, West Virginia, under the direction of teacher Phil Dobbins, that has created a dynasty. They are the six-time state champions of the Clay County We the People team for winning Citizens and Constitution competition. These kids work almost year-round getting prepared for this. The We the People program accumulates with a simulated congressional hearing during the students, and they testify before a panel of judges acting as members of Congress. So we think we know the Constitution. I'd say these kids could probably educate us all on the Constitution, and Jake, you might want to listen to this. But anyway, it's something that we need to really be proud of. This school was devastated in 2016 with the flood, and it bounced right back. The folks in Clay are a real resilient bunch, and they're a proud folk, and they should be. They represent what really West Virginians are all about. They take what they have and they do good things with it. But to think about a school the size of Clay County being the 6th consecutive state champions is something that we all should be proud about. Urge adoption of the resolution.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Recognize the Senator from Harrison County.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's to my honor to stand up in support of this resolution. You know, one of the best things about being a senator is you get to know a lot of other places and almost call them home. And Clay County, certainly that for the senator from Braxton and I both. You've heard me say dozens of times up here, those who fail to know history are doomed to repeat it. Well, these students, and I'd like to take a second to name them individually, not only know history, but they're champions of it. And the students in this year's We the People team from Clay County High School include Kelsey Prather, Jaden Koger, Julia Hokum, Caleb Atha, Nicholas Evans, Owen Nottingham, Zoe Davis, Austin Smith, Autumn Stone, Elijah Payton, Emily Hayes, Jefferson Heimer, Anastasia Kopp, Arden Kopp, Tyler Cummings, and Hayden Morris. And please note that 6 years is a heck of a run, but this is a different team every single year. It's not the same group of students. Every year, Mr. Dobbins takes a new group, and they have become champions 6 years in a row. So I stand in full support of the resolution, Mr. President.
Thank you. Further discussion? Further discussion? The question before the Senate is adoption of resolution. A roll call has been demanded. Is the demand sustained? The demand is sustained. All those in favor of the resolution will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? So the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the resolution adopted. Junior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our question now is consent that the comments made by the senators from Braxton and Harrison be placed in the appendix of the journal.
Without objection, so ordered. Junior Senator from 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting the resolution.
Junior Senator from 17th moves that the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting this resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate in recess to present this resolution. will please come to order. The Senate will please come to order. Recognize the senator from Harrison County.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, Clay County High School's made great
Senator
strides.
from Harrison County requests unanimous consent to address the Senate. Briefly address the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator may proceed.
I apologize for that. Clay County High School's made great strides in academic performance, and one piece of evidence of that is our parliamentarian is an alumni of Clay County High School, but he is a great product of Clay County High School, and I think we ought to give him a little round of applause for his alma mater and the great achievements that it made today. Thank you, Jake.
Thank you. Recognize the senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the Senate return to the second order of business.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Introduction of guests. Recognize senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today is Nurses Policy Day at the Legislature. So you'll see in the halls of the Capitol today nurses who've come here. We owe an enormous debt of gratitude to nurses who serve us, provide health care. They are the front line of health care throughout the state. Hospitals, nursing homes, community centers, schools, churches, and we can only imagine how horrible our lives would be if we didn't have the nurses that we have. We have a few that have joined us in the President's Gallery, and I'd ask them to stand, and I'd ask the Senate to make them feel welcome.
Thank you. Are there further introductions? Further introductions? Are there additional items under unfinished business?
No, sir.
Bills on third reading.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 291, requiring PEIA and health insurance providers provide mental health parity. Third reading of the bill.
The question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? Recognize the senator from Marshall County.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill provides that PEIA and health insurance providers shall not discriminate between how they administer medical surgical benefits and mental health benefits in the administration of the plan. The bill requires coverage for behavioral health, mental health, and substance use disorder to continue while the claim is under review. The bill provides that unless a claim is denied for non-payment of premium, a statement explaining that covered persons are protected under this section must be provided. The bill requires annual reporting to the legislature on compliance with these provisions. The bill also provides that insurance carriers establish rules and PIA publish information in its annual plan document. Basically, Mr. President, in summary, the purpose of this bill, and this was, I would like to thank the whip, the majority whip, is to bring up mental health parity with regards to surgical and medical benefits and health plans, and I urge passage.
Is there further discussion? Recognize the senator from Brooke County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too would like to thank not only the chair of the Health Committee, but also his counsel who worked tirelessly on this bill to get this all together in a form that is workable. And I want to also thank the senator from Cabell for joining me on this bill. Mr. President, this piece of legislation came to me in discussions that I had with mental health providers over the past year or so. Mental health parity is not a term that I knew. I didn't know what it all entailed. But as I spoke with providers, not just in my area but around the state, they kept bringing up the term in reference to that a lot of their patients didn't have the same coverage that they had for medical plans. That while a doctor might, your health insurance might not limit the times that you would see a doctor for your diabetes, they do limit sometimes the amount of times that you could see a counselor or a psychologist. And so there have been two federal laws that have gone into place on parity, but there are still a lot of gaps. And in a recent study done by a nonprofit that tracks parity laws across the country, West Virginia was given an F for its parity laws. And so I thought this is something that needed to be brought to the forefront, because this isn't the world that we lived in 20 to 30, 40 years ago, where mental health was maybe perhaps an unspoken topic. That now mental health, behavioral health, emotional health issues are things that we can discuss, things that we can talk about in the open, and that people should seek treatment for. Yesterday I saw that it was the 52nd anniversary of Mr. Rogers debuting, and I am reminded of, I recently watched the documentary on Mr. Rogers, and he was testifying before Congress in the early 70s, and he said to the committee that he was testifying in front of that we want to teach children that feelings are mentionable and manageable. And I think that's a lesson to take from a bill like this, that feelings are mentionable, that they're manageable. These are things that we can discuss, that we can seek treatment for, and I think that this bill will help people get that access to care that they need to help them in their lives, to help stabilize them and get them to be as productive as they possibly can. So I want to thank everybody that had a role in this piece of legislation, and I urge passage.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Further discussion? If not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 502 relating to methamphetamine criminal penalty. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? Recognize the senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 502 would amend a single section of the state code. It's in Chapter 60A, which is the West Virginia Controlled Substances Act. Article 4 of the Act is the article that delineates criminal offenses and penalties, and Section 401 is the amended section. The felony offenses under subsection A for delivery of a controlled substance, manufacture of a controlled substance, possession with intent to deliver a controlled substance are set forth in subsection A. The highest penalties in current law are those which are reserved for substances under Schedule 1 and 2, which are narcotics. And they draw a higher penalty than those offenses with respect to other substances. This bill would move methamphetamine into that class of criminal offenses which have the highest and most severe stout penalties associated with felony offenses. I think it's an important bill, Mr. President, because as we know, there are parts of West Virginia where methamphetamine is causing havoc in the lives of our fellow citizens. I'd be happy to try to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge the bill's passage.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? Not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 562, expunging certain criminal convictions. Third reading of the bill.
The question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? Recognize the senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 562 amends two sections of the state code. They're both in Chapter 61, which is our criminal code, and they're both in Article 11, which contains general provisions concerning crimes. The two sections amended are Sections 26 and 26A, relating to expungements of criminal convictions. And this might be described as a technical cleanup bill as a result of the legislation we passed last year regarding expungements. But this bill clarifies what happens when persons seek expungement if they have multiple misdemeanors that occurred in more than one county. This bill makes it clear that the petition for expungement in that circumstance can be filed simply in one county, and it would be the county of the person's residence. The bill also makes some other technical corrections, changing some antiquated terms. Warden changes that to Commissioner of Corrections. and refers to the law enforcement agency head which effected the arrest. I'd be happy to try to answer questions, Mr. President. Otherwise, I urge the bill's passage.
Is there further discussion? Not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question being 34 yea, 0 nay, 0 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 610, removing resident manager requirement for Alcohol Beverage Control Administration. Third reading of the bill.
The question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? Recognize Senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Engrossed Senate Bill 610 amends a number of sections of code. There are two sections in Chapter 11, Article 16, Sections 3 and 8. Sections in Chapter 16A, a single section there. 3 sections in Chapter 29, Article 22B. There are amendments to the code in Chapter 60, Article 1, Article 3A, Article 7, 2 sections in Article 7, and 2 in Article 8. The whole purpose of the bill is to bring our state law into compliance and conformance with a decision by the United States Supreme Court in the case called Tennessee Wine and Spirits, and it relates to residency. And so this bill will bring our law into compliance in those areas. They include private club licensure, LVL licensure, and our medical cannabis as well, I believe. So there are limits, according to the Tennessee Wine and Spirits case, under the Commerce Clause of the United States Constitution, limits on the ability of a state to impose residency requirements for licensure. And as I said, this bill is designed to bring our law into conformity with that United States Supreme Court opinion. Be happy to try to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge the bill's passage.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? Not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question being 34 yea, 0 nay, 0 absent not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Junior Senator from 17.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage, that the bill be made effective July 1, 2020, and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Junior Senator from the 17th moves that the bill be made effective July 1, 2020, and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question being 34 yea, 0 nay, 0 absent not voting, more than 2/3 of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective July 1, 2020. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 692, clarifying persons indicted or charged jointly for felony offense can move to have separate trial. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? Senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The bill, committee substitute for Senate Bill 692, amends a single section of the state code. The amended section is Chapter 62, Article 3, Section 8. Article 3 is trials of criminal cases. The operative language of the amendment is short, so I'll just read it. It provides that notwithstanding any provision of law or judicial rule to the contrary, if a person is jointly indicted with one or more other persons, each defendant charged with a felony offense or offenses is entitled, upon motion, to his or her own separate trial, at which his or her guilt or innocence of the charge or charges will be determined. It flows from, Mr. President, language that's already in the bill, which talks about juror strikes and how those are allocated if people are indicted jointly but elect to be tried separately. But this makes clear that every defendant in West Virginia charged with a felony has a right to have his or her own trial. Be happy to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge the bill's passage.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? Not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question being 34 yea, 0 nay, 0 absent not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Are there additional bills under third reading?
No, sir.
Bills on second reading?
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 130 relating to procedure for driver's license suspension and revocation for DUI. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 253 providing for fair pay and maximized employment of disabled persons. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Senate Bill 651 relating to definition of mortgage loan originator. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 660 regulating electric bicycles. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Engrossed House Bill 4149 relating to insurance. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. The Committee on Banking and Insurance moved to amend the bill.
Recognize the senator from Wood County.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The senator may proceed.
This is a strike and insert amendment. It adds 2 items to the list of service contract examples, rewards 2 terms being defined, and makes technical corrections. Mr. President, I urge passage of the amendment.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? Not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the committee amendment as offered by the senator from Wood County. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the committee amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not, the bill will be advanced.
Engrossed House Bill 4359 increasing the filing fees for insurers. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. The Committee on Banking and Insurance moved to amend the bill on page 1, section 34, lines 1
Recognize
through 3.
the senator from Wood County.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent to explain the amendments in lieu of having them read, and that all amendments be considered as one.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The senator may proceed.
Mr. President, these amendments clarify the definition of filing for purposes of the section being amended and add a missing comma. I urge passage of the amendments.
Is there further discussion? Not, question before the Senate is adoption of the amendments as offered by the senator from Wood County. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the amendments adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not, the bill will be advanced.
Engrossed House Bill 4411 relating to the West Virginia Residential Mortgage Lender, Broker, and Servicer Act. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not, the bill will be advanced. Are there additional bills under second reading?
Yes, sir. Engrossed House Bill 4515 relating to wildlife resources eligibility for license or permit application. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not, the bill will be advanced. Further items under second reading?
No, sir.
Bills on first reading. Recognize Junior Senator from 17.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that all the bills on first reading be considered read a first time and advance to second reading.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Introduction of guest. Remarks by members of the Senate. Recognize the Junior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, today I'm going to hit a little bit different side of this, the needle exchange issue that I've been addressing for the past couple days. Hopefully, you took time to at least look through some of the slides that are outside the finance chamber there with the projector that shows very recent pictures going through Huntington as a result of their health department's needle exchange program. When I first started looking into this, I met with a lot of law enforcement, asking, because there's not research about what happens to a community outside of the participants that are actually participating in the needle exchange, what happens around it? Because what I was seeing told me that essentially everything except the drug was being provided by them in these needle exchanges that they need to do the drug. And it made sense to me that if you're going to do that, that you put a concentration of people who are seeking drugs in an area, you're going to see an increase in distribution of drugs in that area, and you're going to see an increase in crime associated with it. In those meetings, I met with state police, I met with sheriff's departments, and I met with city policemen. And I want to share with you some of the responses that I've got from those. One, when this bill was supposed to have been in front of committee this past Tuesday, and we didn't get to have these discussions in committee to vet it all out, one of those people who was going to come to speak was Sheriff Rutherford. Sheriff Rutherford is a sheriff of Kanawha County and had experience with Charleston's needle exchange, which eventually got shut down from their local health department. Now, there's another one here in Charleston that operates very similarly to the bill that would have been, the subcommittee would have came in for, excuse me, not subcommittee, the committee substitute bill would have came in for. Health Right operates that, and their needle exchange ratio is around 99%. It's 96 to 99%. The testing rate's way up there too. That number's included in the numbers I gave you, which brings the health department's numbers up, which were pitiful. So what Sheriff Rutherford said is that when the needle exchange program started in Charleston, 32 states, they were getting off buses in Charleston to access that needle exchange. And the vagrancy went up, the crime went up, the drug trade went up. And I asked him, I said, what changed since? And here's what I did not expect. I said, since it was eliminated, what have you noticed? He said, well, the people are still here. Because when you have what he referred to, and almost every officer that I spoke to referred to as drug tourism. It's not the tourism we're wanting, but it's the tourism we're getting right now. Drug tourism, when they come and get off the buses for these programs that are taxpayer dollars that you pay and I pay and your family pays provide, they stay here. He's still dealing with the same people that came in for that exchange program throughout the county of Kanawha County. He was willing to come in and testify to that in front of committee. Now, the state police, when I spoke to them, they have to clear pretty high up the chain before they'll speak in front of committee, so they couldn't speak in front of committee or give official opinion. But I can tell you it did not vary from what I just said. And then I had the very first bill that was introduced, when I first mentioned it, effectively outlawed needle exchanges, which was the position I took. And then after looking into some of the ones that had a real high return rate and had decent results for the participants in the exchange for providing treatment and helping to control disease. Before that, when they were about to be outlawed, I got a letter from an email from an officer in Huntington. I've redacted his name off this email, and the reason I've done that is because I don't want to get any city officer in trouble with their mayor. Dear sir, I would like to commend you for your legislation against the needle exchange programs. I have seen firsthand, as a resident of Huntington, how badly this program has failed and negatively impacted Huntington. There are a few families in West Virginia that have not been directly impacted by this addiction crisis, but the needle exchange has not achieved its stated goal of preventing the spread of disease, as we have seen in Cabell County with hepatitis and HIV outbreaks that have endangered the entire population of these counties. Whereas prior to these exchanges, there were very, very few cases of either disease. You heard me quote yesterday a surgeon from Cabell Huntington Hospital, who's a professor at Marshall Medical School, say yesterday that CDC recognized that Huntington is the highest outbreak area for Hep C. This officer is also saying that same thing. Also remember that the testing for that was below 10%. In addition, we have seen a large increase in out-of-state addicts that have flocked to Huntington area, specifically because of the ease of obtaining free needles and cheap, accessible drugs from dealers who have ready-made clientele when they inevitably are kicked out of the many recovery houses when they fail a urine test. As a result, Huntington now has a large transient population that places a burden upon law enforcement, social services, the courts, and the medical community as a whole. In my opinion, this is not sustainable for Huntington or West Virginia as a whole and can only lead to worse and worse problems for our state and depletion of our limited resources financially and, most importantly, our quality of life for our people. Thank you for your insight and understanding of this very complex problem, and I hope you find success this session so that all West Virginia communities may be free of the scourge of this failed program and the people who have pushed it. You'll see in that slideshow that's up on the wall outside the Finance Committee that somebody covered up yesterday. I guess they didn't want to shed the light on some of the roach issues that needs to have the light shed on it here in West Virginia. So I made sure that it's out there and visible for you again to make sure you can go see that slideshow. One of the slides in there is a hand holding about a large mason jar worth of dirty syringes picked up in Huntington in 2 hours by a police officer who repeated, almost verbatim, different officer, what I just read to you. So there can still be bills originated. I've heard speaking of it right now. I'm going to tell you what the committee substitute that was supposed to have been in that committee does. It would require that anybody accessing one of these exchanges have a state-issued ID by the state of West Virginia. So we don't have 32 states coming in and leaving the vagrancy. Issue only needles with a serial number identifying each needle as unique and identifying the number of needles dispensed, also clearly identifying the dispensary. These are not items that aren't already done. Their Health Right does about all these with these really high return rates. Match a photo ID of the individual receiving the needle to the needle dispensed and keep a record. Issue only one needle received from an individual. So a one-to-one exchange. Not come dump off sharps containers and count them as needles that were exchanged for a clean needle, but a one-to-one exchange, which some of the ones that are claiming these really high return rates have found that lifted again the numbers I've told you. That's the way they're doing it. Require that the person receiving any needle be personally present with their ID. Because what also has happened is they're sending other people. Sometimes it's the dealers sending somebody to have needles with their product. Offer treatment at every visit to the needle exchange, including but not limited to counseling, birth control, detox, rehab placement. Test for HIV and hepatitis every 3 months with participation in the needle exchange. Provide a mechanism for participants to get assistance into treatment 24/7, not just during business hours when the exchange happens. Keep a record of needles issued and the number of needles received from each individual for 7 years. Have available a quick response team on call sufficient to cover calls for recovery of discarded needles and retrieve needles within 1 hour of the call within the county of the needle exchange location. And finally, be subject to a penalty of $5,000 per day with a $25,000 per year max for noncompliance with the above to actually give this some legitimacy. This is the problem this legislature is not fixing, and it's real. And it's something that's a low-hanging fruit that we can do for the people of West Virginia that will positively affect this drug crisis. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Further remarks? Recognize the senator from Cabell County.
Thank you, Mr. President. This might take a minute or two. So I live about my office is about 200 yards from this needle exchange. I go to church, I don't know, 3 blocks away from there. I have never seen a needle. You go ahead, Mr. President. I'm gonna. Maybe I should be laughed at if I got up here and told a bunch of lies like somebody else has. Other people might do. Maybe I should be scoffed at. Let me get to the point. I've decided that I'm going to get up every day and I'm going to speak about conflicts. One of your preeminent members of your caucus, who's no longer in the Senate, and I, over the last 4 years, have compiled quite a list of self-promoting bills that have been brought forth in this body. And we compared notes from our caucuses. And I've got a list of bill numbers and sponsors that I'm going to get up every day and talk about for people that want to promote their own financial interests in this body. So that'll be my plan the rest of the way. And I'll tell you something else. When I first got here, I was impressed and remain impressed with the decorum, civility, and respect that we show one another. And earlier today, we had a former member of the Senate here. And when that happens, I look at the person that we honor, that we clap for, we stand for. And I say, you know, that person sat here and they worked hard. And they had the frustration that we all have. But I don't care what political party they are. I turn around and I stand up. And I respect them because it's a matter of civility and respect and decorum. Now, that didn't happen earlier today. And I think it's disrespectful to you, Mr. President, and the body when someone stays in their seat and one of our former colleagues is here. That offended me. I look at my Judiciary Chair, who has the most civility of anybody and patience, if anybody I've ever met. Now, he may disagree with something one of us says in committee, but you could never know it because he's got the respect. He respects the process. It's one of the reasons I enjoy coming here every day. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further remarks, recognize the senior senator from the 5th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to give a few facts that need to be discussed. There's no secret that this state has an opioid and a drug problem. It's everywhere. Huntington just happened to be the epicenter in a lot of cases, but we've addressed that. In 2015, the Cabell-Huntington Health Department started the Cabell-Huntington Harm Reduction Program. And these are facts. I don't know any bill or anything that we do when we start out, it is the same when we finish. Look at the process here. So they've made changes since 2015. They made a change in 2018. They made a change in when we had a hepatitis outbreak in 2018. They've made changes all the way through, and specifically related to the Charleston issue. They reduced and restricted. They made many of the types of things that you say that it can only be by West Virginia residents that can get needle exchange. I don't know anybody that likes the needle side of this. There's no one that does, but they're addressing it. And let me just say that they're addressing it from the local side of this, from the local perspective. And that's what needs to be done. This needs to be done on the local. We know more about Huntington, and we know more about Cabell and Wayne County than someone in another county does. And let me also say that Dr. Adams, the Surgeon General, was coming to speak recently and had to cancel, but he made some comments on this. And let me tell you his story. He's appointed by President Trump as the Surgeon General. He previously was the Commissioner of Health in Indiana. Scott County, Indiana had the largest HIV outbreak in America. He had to find a way to be able to come and get a solution to that. Guess what he did? He found harm reduction and the needle exchange, and he implemented it. He had to implement it with no rules in place from the state level, and he did it so effectively that the President put him in as the Surgeon General to try to address this. He's actually published a Facing Addiction in America, the Surgeon General's Spotlight on Opioids. And I'm going to finish just by saying that this is his comment. Dr. Adams has pledged to lead with science and facilitate locally led solution to the nation's most difficult health problems. Thank you.
Further remarks. Recognize the junior senator from the 8th.
Yes, Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the comments made by the senators from Wayne and Cabell be printed in the appendix journal.
Without objection, so ordered. Further remarks. Recognize the junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the comments made by the senator from Putnam, which would be the junior senator from the 4th, be placed in the appendix of the journal.
Without objection, so ordered. Further remarks. Further remarks. Miscellaneous business. Recognize the junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pending announcements, I move the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Are there announcements? Recognize the senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee on the Judiciary will meet today at 3 o'clock p.m. in the Judiciary Committee Room in 208 West Wing.
Recognize the senator from Brooke County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've got several announcements here, so everybody might want to just keep track here. So at 1 o'clock, your Committee on Health will be meeting in room 451M. At 2 o'clock, your Committee on the Education will be meeting in room 451M. And also your Committee on GovOrg will be meeting in 208 West at 2 o'clock. Now, so this evening, we're going to have a couple meetings come back. So if Education is required to meet, they don't get their agenda done, Education will be meeting in room 451M after Judiciary or Finance, whichever is the later. Following Education, if it's necessary, Health will be meeting in room 451M. 30 minutes following the conclusion of your Health Committee, Government Organization will resume its deliberations on bills in room 208 West. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Are there further announcements? Recognize the senior senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Senate Finance Committee will meet this afternoon at 3 p.m., room 451M. The agenda's been posted. I'm going to use announcements to go just a little bit further on this also. I was noticing that we have about 35 bills on first reading, and one of them is Senate Bill 837. That's the personal property tax bill. And I wanted to extend to everyone here the fact that since it is on second reading tomorrow, that the staff, their staff in the Finance Committee room, if there's amendments that need help or numbers to go along with it, they are available to be able to do that. And one last thing is that we may have a meeting tomorrow afternoon on that, but we'll be meeting before then, but there won't be any meeting tomorrow morning. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Are there further announcements? Recognize the junior senator from the 8th.
Mr. President, the West Virginia AFL-CIO will have their labor caucus today, immediately after the floor session. Lunch will be provided, 330 West. Thank you.
Senator from Tucker County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Energy will meet today at 1 o'clock in 208 West, and the agenda has been posted.
Further announcements. Further announcements. Not question for the Senate is, shall the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m.? All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m.
The House will please be in order. Those persons not having privileges of the floor will please vacate the chamber at this time, and all members and guests in the galleries will please rise as we are led in prayer by Pastor Chad Dingus. He is the guest of the gentleman, the 42nd, Doug Campbell.
Let's bow our heads for a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for your presence, God, and we thank you for the day that you have given us, and we just invite your presence into this place today. And God, we thank you for those that are called into public service, for the House of Delegates, and all those, God, that are serving other people. We realize today, God, that the highest call of leadership is to utilize our influence and to honor you and to serve others. We know, God, that you set leaders in position of influence. We ask, God, that you would bless them, God, as they make decisions for the great state of West Virginia. And God, we honor them, God, that are in leadership. And we ask, God, according to Psalms chapter 133, that there would be unity between both sides, God. Lord, unity, your word says, commands a blessing, that the place of unity is where you command your blessing. And God, we also pray, according to Ephesians chapter number 1, that you would grant that are serving and making decisions today, that you would grant them a spirit of wisdom. God, we know that this is higher than us, and God, that you can help us, God, make decisions that would better the people of West Virginia. And God, we ask it today in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. All members and guests in the galleries will remain standing as we are led in the Pledge of Allegiance by the gentleman, the 42nd, Doug Campbell.
Will everyone please join me for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members and guests may be seated. Reading of the Journal.
Journal of the House of Delegates, Charleston, Wednesday, February 19th, 2020.
The gentleman, the 62nd, Doug Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that further reading of the Journal be dispensed with and same be approved as having been read.
The gentleman, the 62nd, asks unanimous consent that further reading of the Journal be dispensed with and to be approved as having been read. Are there objections? The chair hears no objections. Lady from the 49th is recognized for an update on the calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Calendar update, special calendar, third reading, committee substitute for House Bill 2663 is moving to the House calendar. On second reading, committee substitute for House Bill 4852 is moving to the House calendar. First reading, special calendar, committee substitute for House Bill 4651 to the House calendar. From the House calendar to the special calendar today, under third reading, committee substitute for House Bill 4001, and that, just for your information, the action, I'll request action be postponed one day so you'll have time to review that. Committee substitute for House Bill 4155 to the special calendar on third reading. Second reading, no changes. First reading, committee substitute for House Bill 4388 to the special calendar.
Ladies, further recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to proceed to the seventh order of business for the purpose of considering H.R. 12, memorializing the life of the Honorable Sally Sussman.
Does the chair hear objection? No objection is heard. All members and guests in the galleries will please rise. Chair recognizes lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today we have with us the family of Sally Sussman. Escorting our special guest in the chamber are delegates Miley, Caputo, Fleischauer, Hartman, Staggers, Bates, Rowe, Evans, and Lavender Bowe.
Clerk will please report the resolution.
House Resolution 12.
Lady in the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the reference of a resolution to a committee be dispensed with and that it be taken up for immediate consideration and put upon its adoption.
The lady from the 49th asked unanimous consent that that the committee reference for House Resolution 12 be dispensed with and to be taken up for immediate consideration and put upon its adoption. Are there objections? The chair hears no objection. Reference to the committee will be dispensed with. The clerk will please read the resolution.
Whereas Sally Matt Sussman was born on June 14, 1930 in Bluefield, West Virginia, daughter of the late Rose Kaplan and Nathan Matz. In addition to her parents, Sally was preceded in death by her husband, Alan Land Sussman, and is survived by her children, daughter Robin Sussman Wartella and her husband Bradley Paul, son Benjamin Matt Sussman and his wife Dixie Pullins, and son Thomas Land Sussman and his wife Carol Lynn, and her 6 grandchildren, Elisa Ray Wartella, Lee Matz Wartella, Jennifer Rose Sussman, Courtney Lynn Sussman, Austin David Sussman, and Michael Allen Sussman, and 2 great-grandchildren, John Carlson Hutchinson and Miles Allen Hutchinson. And whereas Sally Sussman graduated high school from Bruneau Academy in Gainesville, Georgia, and received her bachelor's degree in journalism from the Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio. And whereas Sally for many years was a member of the Fourth Estate as a newspaper publisher and editor, operating the Mullins Advocate in Mullins, West Virginia, and the Gulf Times in Sophia, West Virginia. And whereas Sally also served as the director of Bank of Mount Hope and the Raleigh County National Bank, and volunteered her time as a member of the advisory board for the West Virginia University School of Medicine, and as a board member of the West Virginia Foundation for Independent Colleges. And whereas Sally's numerous activities in her local community include being a member of the Coalfield Expressway, volunteering for the Beckley Garden Club, the Beckley Women's Club, the West Virginia chapter of the NAACP, and numerous other community service organizations. And whereas, fueled by her passion and desire to contribute to her community, Sally Sussman was elected to serve 2 terms on the Raleigh County Board of Education, and then subsequently ran for and was elected to the West Virginia House of Delegates, and proudly represented the 27th District of Raleigh and Summers counties for 10 years, from 1999 until 2006, and again from 2009 to 2010. And whereas, through her service in the House of Delegates, Delegate Sussman served on numerous committees, most notably serving as Vice Chair of the Committee on Constitutional Revision and Vice Chair of the Committee on Political Subdivisions, and as Chair of the Employee Suggestion Award Board. And whereas Sally's commitment to education, health care, and ensuring equality among all West Virginians will forever be remembered and reflected in her amiable legacy. And whereas Delegate Sussman was never afraid to speak her mind. And whereas during her service with the House of Delegates, she developed many close friendships with other members and House staff, and will always be appreciated and remembered by those of us at the House of Delegates who had the honor to know her kindness, generosity, and friendship. Whereas, sadly, West Virginia lost a fine citizen, committed and respected public servant, giving and dedicated friend to many. The Honorable Sally Matt Sussman passed away on December 23, 2019. Therefore, be it resolved by the House of Delegates that the House of Delegates hereby memorializes the life of the Honorable Sally Matt Sussman, proud mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, journalist, public servant, loyal and caring West Virginian. And be it further resolved that the House of Delegates hereby extends its sincere sympathy to her family at the passing of the Honorable Sally Matt Sussman. And be it further resolved that the clerk of the House of Delegates forward a copy of this resolution to the family of the Honorable Sally Matz Sussman.
The question before the House is the adoption of the resolution. A roll call has been demanded. The demand is sustained. The question is, shall the resolution be adopted? Those in favor of adoption will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. The clerk will also please record the votes of all members escorting our guests into the House chamber today as having voted in the affirmative. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 97 ayes, 0 nays, and 3 members absent not voting. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the resolution adopted. The House will please be at ease while the chair presents the resolution. Members and guests may be seated. Introductions. The lady in the 49th, Douglas Summers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have 2 introductions today. The first, West Virginia History Heroes are nominated by historical, genealogical, preservation, museum, patriotic, or like organizations from across the state. The purpose of this annual award is to give state-level recognition to individuals for dedicated service on behalf of an organization's programs or for a recent significant contribution to state and local history. This morning, 30 individuals were recognized as West Virginia History Heroes for 2020, and they are with us this morning in the gallery. If they would please rise and the House make them feel welcome. My second introduction today is it's Nurses Day at the Legislature. Please join us in welcoming the West Virginia Nurses Association and nursing students from across West Virginia. Their advocacy for patients and nursing is admired. If they would please stand and the House make them welcome.
The gentleman, the 34th, Douglas Boggs.
Thank you and good morning, Mr. Speaker. I'm very happy to introduce one of our history heroes today on your behalf as well. In the West Gallery, if he would stand, Elwood White. He's a history hero from Gilmer County, and he's also accompanied by 2 very special guests for the Speaker and I, also Dr. David Corcoran, editor, publisher, and historian, and his son Patrick Corcoran, who I was privileged to have work with me as a Herndon Fellow here several years ago. Please make these fine Gilmer County citizens welcome.
The gentleman of 66, Douglas Espinoza.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the North Gallery, pleased to introduce Crystal Chapman on behalf of my Eastern Panhandle colleagues. Crystal is a nurse at Berkeley Medical Center. She's here for the West Virginia Nurse Policy Summit. Will the House please make her and her father, who's escorting her, welcome.
The gentleman of 13th, Douglas Higginbotham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the gallery, we have a childhood friend of mine, Jade Watts. Jade, if you would please stand. She is here for Nurses Day, so if the House would please make a fellow Putnam County citizen welcome.
The gentleman of 7th, Douglas Barnhart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've got some very special guests with us today from Ritchie County. I have two separate introductions. First of all, joining us today from Ritchie County High School, we have a foreign exchange student coming in to us from Chile, and her name is Antonia Torres Lagos. I'm so sorry. I would ask her to please stand and first have the House make her feel welcome. Also, Mr. Speaker, we also have some very special guests accompanying her today. My predecessor and one of my role models, and a role model for me in public service. We have former delegate Jason Harshbarger with his wife as well, Michelle. I asked them to stand, and I asked the House to stand and make them feel welcome. Thank you.
The gentleman of 10th, I got Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I have a friend of mine from Parkersburg. Jeff Elder, will you please stand and welcome him to the House of Delegates.
The gentleman of 53rd, Delegate Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm real pleased and proud to introduce to you a fellow Prestonian, Mark Reed, if he would stand and everybody make him feel welcome. He comes from a small town in Preston County. It's Rollsburg. In 1985, that town was pretty well decimated. But through the hard work of these people and these historians, they have brought back the life in Rollsburg, and I'm so proud to be a part of that community or represent that community. Thank you.
Lady in the 52nd, Douglas Saipo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I also have a Prestonian down from the Arthurdale area where Eleanor Roosevelt once danced on the floor of the Arthurdale Center, and that would be Melinda Shrout, and I'm not sure which gallery she got in, but if she would stand and we'd make her feel welcome.
The gentleman of 16th, Douglas Linville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have a history hero with us today and a fellow Miltonian, Miss Barbara Wallace of Milton, West Virginia. Would she please stand, and would the House please make her feel welcome?
The gentleman of 10th, Douglas Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Please join the delegates from Wood County in welcoming from Wood County, Mr. Bob Enoch and other members of the Wood County Historic Society. If they please stand, and the House please make them feel welcome.
The gentleman of 47th, Douglas Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From the heart of West Virginia in Barber County, down here for Nurses Day today, we have Joyce Wilson in the North Gallery. Everyone please give her a big welcome.
The gentleman of 22nd, Douglas Jeffries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Visiting us for the third time is Joseph Reed, our doc of the day. If Joseph would stand, and the House make him welcome.
The gentleman of the 10th, Doug Azinger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today it's my privilege to introduce Bree Milhone. She's the daughter of my physician. Would the House please make her welcome?
The gentleman of the 14th, Doug Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Very appropriately today on History Hero Day from Point Pleasant, West Virginia, which is the first battle of the Revolutionary War, we have great friends of mine and people I go to church with, actually, Craig and Andrea Hessen. If those folks would please stand up and the House welcome them.
The gentleman of the 48th, Doug Miley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the delegates from the 48th District, I would like to introduce several people who are down here joining us today. Somewhere in the galleries are several members of the Harrison County Education Association and also Mr. Robert Worsburn advocating on behalf of AARP. Would all of those individuals rise and allow the House to make you feel welcome?
The gentleman of the 23rd, Delegate Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have some very special guests with us located in the South Gallery. Actually, they're state champions. It's my honor to present to you, if they would please stand to be recognized, the 2019 Class A state softball champions, the Sherman Lady Tide, who once they started their trek through the sectional, regional, and state tournament, outscored their opponents a total of 54-4 and sweep the state tournament undefeated. So if the House would please welcome our state champion Lady Tide softball team.
Lady in the 50th, Doug Longstreth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today in the House, and I'm not so sure he's in the gallery, but we have our Reverend D.D. Mayen, who's such a great leader in Marion County. He films our city councils, he films our county commission meetings so that our area knows exactly what's going on with our government. He's here today with some students from East Fairmont High School, but I would like you to welcome him and give him a nice hand for all the things that he's done. Thank you, Dee. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman of the 4th, Doug Canestraro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate Zukoff and myself, we have a couple history heroes here from Marshall County. In the main gallery, we have Jim and Stoltz and his wife Charlene, and Daniel Butler and his wife Carol, if they would please stand. And we also have from the Marshall County Library Board, Karen Caulfield and Susan Riley, if they would stand, and would the House please make them feel welcome.
Lady in the 42nd, Doug Lavender Bow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of myself and Delegate Campbell, I'd like to recognize Tom Isaacs, recipient of the History Hero Award for his service to the Greenbrier Historical Society. In the West Gallery, here on his behalf, is his wife, Sissy, and she's accompanied by her friends, Judy and Skip Deegans, all of Lewisburg. Would the House please make them welcome?
The gentleman of the 43rd, Doug Hartman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the South Gallery, we have a former member, Denise Campbell. Denise, stand up so we can make you welcome. Also, Denise is accompanied by a group of nursing students from Aldous and Broadus University. If they would all stand.
The gentleman of the 43rd, Doug Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate Hartman and myself,
Today we are joined by some pages from Elkins Middle School. If they would please stand as I call their names. We have Emerson Haddix, Gracelyn Corley, and Douglas Griffin Boggs, and they are escorted today by parents in the West Gallery, Abby Haddix and Connie Lucas. If the House would please make them all feel welcome.
The gentleman of the 20th, Douglas Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of myself and Delegate Tomlin from the 24th, we have some pages here at the Capitol today we'd like to recognize. They come from Holden Elementary, which is located in the 20th District in Logan County. So if you all would stand as I announce your name, I'd appreciate it. Miss Abigail Click, Mr. Patrick Kinney, Miss Kenzie Long, Patrick Vickers, and Maddox Beavers. If the House would acknowledge them and welcome here at the Capitol today. Thank you.
Lady in the 32nd, Douglas Staggers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've got people in the South and the North. So from the great 32nd District, where all the women are strong and the men are good looking, up in the South Gallery, we have Sonny Petrie, former staff member here. Would you stand up? Thank you, Sonny. And in the North Gallery, I have some teachers and students from Oak Hill, the magnificent, dangerous Red Devils. Teachers Brett Floyd, Sarah Case, and I'm going to try and read all these names real quick, see if I can beat Robert. Markayla King, Joseph Wallace, Josiah Baker, Cody Linville, Adam Niebert, Max Holland, Lane Jordan, Andre Ray, Matthew Mosrick, Cordy Lintrell, Seth Crozier, Christian Dyer, Savannah Holbrick, Darlene Robinson, Heather Williams, Mason Clement, Kaylee Light, Maribel Flores, Tega DeMelli, Dylan Matheny, Nathan Bloomfield. Would they stand in the North Gallery and welcome the Red Devils?
The gentleman of the 44th, Douglas Hannah.
Mr. Speaker, today I'm pleased to have with me some pages from Webster County. Gracie Hines, she's escorted today by Sharon Hines, and also Levi Davis, who was brought here today by Deborah and Edward Davis. If they would please stand, and the House would make them feel welcome. And then also, Mr. Speaker, the gentlelady from the 32nd neglected one announcement, and that's with West Virginia HISTA. One of their chaperones today is actually from the 41st District, and she is my girlfriend's mother. So if Michelle Sims would please stand in the House and make her feel welcome.
The gentleman of the 50th, Douglas Angelucci.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegates Caputo and Longstreth in the South Gallery, we have students from the civics classes from East Fairmont High School, and accompanying them is their instructors, Mr. Josh Dobbs and Ms. Jamie Dean. If they would all stand, and the House please make them feel welcomed.
The gentleman of the 37th, Douglas Pushkin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the entire Kanawha County delegation, I'd like to welcome a page from Sissonville Middle School, Mr. J.R. Walker, if he would rise. And he is accompanied today, I believe, in the West Gallery by Derek Walker and Denise Tucker. Would they rise, and would the House please make them feel welcome?
The gentleman of the 17th, Douglas Lovejoy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of your Cabell County delegation, we've got some friends here from back home. For History Heroes, we have Tom Galloway, Clea Lovejoy Simmons, Linda Smith, and Betsy Allen. They're joined in the West Gallery by Karen and Johnny Nance, if they'd stand, as well as our chairman of the West Virginia Archives and History Commission, Nate Randolph. I also see seated there are going to be our next circuit judge in Wayne County, Jason Fry. If you'd stand, the House make him welcome.
The gentleman of the 50th, Douglas Angelucci.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just happened to look up in the gallery and I see someone that I wanted to recognize. So on behalf of Delegates Caputo, Longstreth, and myself, I'd like to introduce Ms. Holly Kaufman. She is the CEO of Mon Power in West Virginia Operations. She has done an absolute fabulous job with our power system. As you know, the weather systems that we've had over the past couple of years, the hard work that our men and women that work for our power company at First Energy and Mom Power is because of her great leadership. So I'd like the House to make her feel welcome.
The gentleman second, Doug Cesario.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Joining us today with the History Heroes in the West Gallery is my dear friend, our former colleague, and current Marshall County Commissioner Mike Farrow, if the House would make him feel welcome.
The gentleman third, Dr. Fluharty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate Storch and myself, from Wheeling, the original best capital city of West Virginia, I'd like to welcome some history heroes that we have with us today. If they would stand, Robert McCulloch, Lisa McNeil, Thomas Buckley, Louis Yurkovich, and a friend of mine and fellow JM guy from back in the day, William Howe Gorby. If they would stand, they can feel welcome. Thank you.
The lady in the 51st, Dr. Walker.
Morning, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. On behalf of myself and all the other delegates from Monongalia County, we have 2 pages from South Middle School. Can Alec Russell and Eden Russell please take a stand, and can the House please give these young men a warm welcome?
The gentleman in the 51st, Dr. Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of all of the delegates from Monongalia County, we have 2 visitors in the South Gallery who are Masters of Public Administration students here at the Capitol to talk with legislators about a study resolution for a state bank. And they are Shelby Johnson and Haley Groudon. If the House could please make them welcome.
The gentleman 19th, Dr. Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Robbie Thompson and the other delegates from Wayne County, I'd like to introduce 3 pages from Wayne High School. And if you would, pages, please stand when your names are announced. These pages are Jace Fry, Piper Elliott, and Elijah Williamson. And they are escorted by Jace is escorted by his father, Jason Fry, and Piper's escorted by Natalie Elliott, and Elijah's escorted by April Williamson. If the escorts would also stand, they're in the West Gallery. House, please make them welcome.
The gentleman of the 19th, Dr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of myself, Delegate Hicks, Warbach, and Lovejoy, we have a history hero today in the gallery. His name is Seaburn Hazlett, and he was nominated by the Wayne County Genealogical and Historical Society. If he would please rise, and we can give him a round of applause. Also, we have 3 additional pages from Wayne High School. If they would please stand when I call their name. They are Chance Thompson, Chase Thompson, and Allison Wellman. Their chaperones are in the gallery as well. So please give everybody a warm welcome. Thank you.
Are there further introductions this morning? If not, then report to standing committees.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration House Bill 4447, creating the Shared Table Initiative for senior citizens who suffer from food insecurity, House Bill 4606, listing contractor classifications on a contractor license, House Bill 4882, authorizing limited sampling and limited sale of wine for off-premises consumption to wineries not licensed in the state, House Bill 4884, relating to a charitable or public service organization must submit a certifying statement attesting to its status, and House Bill 4887, relating to revocation, cancellation, or suspension of business registration certificates, reports the same back with the recommendation that they each do pass.
Report to be received.
Originating in the Committee on Government Organization is House Bill 4960, relating to exempting from licensure as an electrician. It's reported with recommendation that it do pass.
Report to be received.
Originating in the Committee on Government Organization is House Bill 4959, relating to clarifying the ability of the Economic Development Authority Board of Directors to enter into any contracts necessary to carry out its duties. It's reported with recommendation that it do pass.
The report will be received.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration House Bill 4792, relating to the Board of Public Works assessing a flat fee on land owned by a railroad, telegraph, telephone, or a pipeline under certain conditions. It's reported with amendment with the recommendation that it do pass as amended, that it be referred to Committee on Finance.
The report will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration House Bill 4823, developing a plan for periodic audits of the expenditure of the fees from the Emergency 911 telephone system and Wireless Enhanced 911, and House Bill 4886, requiring the PSC and the DOH to submit reports concerning activity on the Coal Resource Transportation Road system. Reports back committee substitutes, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitutes each do pass.
The report will be received.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration House Bill 4360, exempting certain persons from heating, ventilating, and cooling system licensing requirements. House Bill 4464, relating to driving privileges and requirements for persons under the age of 18, and House Bill 4803, directing the State Fire Commission to promulgate a legislative rule related to code official certification standards. Reports back committee substitutes, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitutes each do pass.
The report will be received.
Your Committee on Fire Departments and Emergency Medical Services has had under consideration House Bill 4899, prohibiting the use of Class B firefighting foam for testing purposes if the foam contains a certain class of fluorinated organic chemicals. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass and that it be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
The report will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 2646, providing a safe harbor for employers to correct underpayment or non-payment of wages and benefits due to separated employees, and House Bill 4485, reorganizing and redesignating the Department of Military Affairs and Public Safety as the Department of Homeland Security. Reports back committee substitutes, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitutes each do pass.
The report will be received.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4396, relating to reporting suspected governmental fraud, and House Bill 4760, modifying video lottery retailer licensing eligibility requirements. Reports the same back with recommendation that each do pass.
The report will be received.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4354, adding the Baximols to the permitted list of distributed prescribed drugs, and House Bill 4715, authorizing municipalities to take action to grant certain fire department employees limited power of arrest. House Bill 4797, authorizing municipalities to enact ordinances that allow the municipal court to place a structure, dwelling, or building into receivership, and House Bill 4872, modifying the criminal penalties imposed on a parent, guardian, or a custodian for child abuse. Reports the same back with the recommendation that each do pass.
The report will be received.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 2088, relating to admissibility of certain evidence in a civil action for damages, and House Bill Bill 4377, the Protection of Vulnerable Adults from the Financial Exploitation Act, House Bill 4433, relating to deeds of trust, and House Bill 4853, relating to a customer constructing a connection or other infrastructure necessary for the customer connect to the public utility. Reports back committee substitutes, therefore, with recommendation that the committee substitutes each do pass.
Report to be received.
Originating in the Committee on Education is House Concurrent Resolution 102, requiring the development of funding formulas for West Virginia's public institutions of higher education. It's reported with recommendation that it be adopted.
The report to be received.
Your Committee on Education has had under consideration House Bill 4780, permitting a school-based decision-making council to offer elective courses of instruction on the Bible. Reports back a committee substitute, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
Report to be received.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration House Bill 4421, Natural Gas Liquids Economic Development Act. Reports back committee substitute, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
Report to be received.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration House Bill 4409, relating to transferring remaining funds from the Volunteer Fire Department Workers' Compensation Premium Subsidy Fund. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass.
Report to be received.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration House Bill 4859, accounting for state funds distributed to volunteer or part volunteer fire companies and departments. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass.
Report to be received.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration House Bill 2149, relating to the Farm to Food Bank tax credit. Reports back committee substitute, therefore, with recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
Report to be received.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration House Bill 4019, Downstream Natural Gas Manufacturing Investment Tax Credit Act of 2020, and House Bill 4558, creating a personal income tax credit for volunteer firefighters in West Virginia. Reports back committee substitutes, therefore, with recommendation that the committee substitutes each do pass.
Report to be received. Are there further reports of standing committees? If not, reports of select committees. Message from the executive. Message from the Senate.
The Senate has concurred in the House amendment to the Senate amendment and passed House Bill 4007, Born Alive Survivors Protection Act.
Message will be received.
The Senate has passed with amendment committee substitute for House Bill 4026, exempting businesses transporting scrap tires, waste tires, or other used tires from certain statutory provisions.
The message will be received. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that the bill be taken up for immediate consideration.
The lady from the 49th asks unanimous consent that committee substitute for House Bill 4026 be taken up for immediate consideration. Are there objections? The chair has no objections. Lady from the 49th.
This bill exempts common carriers and contract carriers transporting scrap, waste, and used tires to storage, disposal, or recycling centers. It also exempts vehicles operated under contract with the DEP used exclusively for cleanup and transportation of waste tires for cleanup projects. The code section lists exemptions, and the Senate amendment changes the conjunctive word "and" to "or." This clarifies the current practice that each exemption applies separately. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move the House concur with the Senate amendment.
The question before the House is the motion that the House concur in the Senate amendments to committee substitute for House Bill 4026. This is a debatable question. Do members wish to speak to the motion? If not, those in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed will say no. Ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Chair declares the motion adopted. Question now before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to passage of the bill? If not, those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 90 ayes, 9 nays, and 1 member absent not voting. A majority of members elected having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4026.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next message from the Senate.
The Senate has passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 6, allowing DOH issue permits for certain tractors with certain trailers not exceeding specified maximum axle weights.
The message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
The Senate has passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 204, providing for nonpartisan elections of county prosecuting attorneys.
The message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
The Senate has concurred in the House amendments and passed Senate Bill 620, authorizing Division of Corrections and Rehabilitation approve home plans for inmates.
The message will be received. The gentleman, the 50th, for an introduction.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We have a special guest who just joined us today. He's a native son of Marion County, and he's our senior United States Senator, Joe Manchin. Welcome.
Clerk will report the next message from the Senate.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 652, authorizing school building authority to promulgate legislative rules.
Message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Education.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 655, relating to evaluation of natural resources, land property.
The message will be received, and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
The Senate has passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 686, exempting contract and common carrier laws for certain vehicles.
The message will be received, and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
The Senate has passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 719, imposing health care related provider tax on certain health care organizations.
The message will be received, and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 740, clarifying authorized users of Ron Yost Personal Assistance Services Fund.
The message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 747, requiring Bureau for Public Health Development Diabetes Action Plan.
The message will be received, and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 748, increasing awareness of palliative care services.
The message will be received, and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 767, relating to licensure of hospitals.
The message will be received, and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources. Are there further messages from the Senate? If not, resolutions.
House Resolution 13.
Lady of the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the reference of the resolution to a committee be dispensed with and that it be taken up for immediate consideration and put upon its adoption.
The lady from the 49th asks unanimous consent that the committee reference for House Resolution 13 be dispensed with, that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration and put upon its adoption. Are there objections? The chair hears no objections. The clerk will please read the resolution.
House Resolution 13, calling upon the Attorney General to investigate the business practices of Electo. Whereas West Virginia hospitals are critical to improve the health of citizens while providing a significant level of services and economic benefits to their communities. Whereas West Virginia hospitals also use their resources to reinvest in new models of care that go well beyond the traditional hospital walls, finding new ways to help improve the health of their communities, from providing access to medical care for patients in rural areas to supporting cutting-edge medical research and innovations. Whereas Electo Healthcare Services purchased Ohio Valley Medical Center in 2017. Whereas when Electo bought the hospital, it was part of a deliberate strategy to acquire facilities that were serving urgent needs to vulnerable populations. In a 2018 interview with Inside Healthcare magazine, Electo founder Lex Reddy described the company's modus operandi: "We often seek out communities that are underserved." Electo found 50 community-based hospitals that are critical to those communities and sustain them. Reddy said the hospitals serve a lot of Medicaid and uninsured patients in its communities. And whereas, while Electo took the financial risks, the public was largely left to foot the bills. with Electo's purchase of OVMC, the City of Wheeling agreed to pay $1.5 million for capital repairs and provide another $1.5 million to demolish old buildings on the properties. And whereas Electo abruptly closed the Ohio Valley Medical Center September 3, 2019, leaving its employees and community fragmented. And whereas Electo purchased Fairmont General Hospital in June 2014 for $15.3 million after this hospital went into bankruptcy with intentions of serving urgent needs to rural populations. And whereas when Electo demonstrated an interest in purchasing the assets of Fairmont General and taking over the operations of the hospital, it made a number of promises, and one of those was to continue with community-based health care in the Marion County region. And whereas Electo projected the hospital's bottom line will improve from a $733,000 deficit during the first 6 months of 2014 to an $8.2 million profit in 2017, according to certificates of need documents filed with the West Virginia Healthcare Authority. And whereas Electo abruptly announced the closure of Fairmont Regional Medical Center on February 18, 2020, when some 600 physicians, nurses, and other personnel were greeted with letters saying the hospital would be closing in 60 days. And whereas multiple solutions have been offered to assist Electo, which have fallen on deaf ears and cold hearts. And whereas the Attorney General serves as the Chief Legal Officer for the state of West Virginia and speaks for the legal interests of the state. And whereas the Attorney General also is entrusted with enforcing the laws of the state as they relate to consumer protection, unfair trade practices, civil rights, and other important areas. Be it resolved by the House of Delegates that the House of Delegates calls upon the Attorney General to immediately investigate the business practices of Electo and determine whether it has violated state laws.
You've heard the resolution as just read by the clerk. The chair has been approached by a number of members who wish to be added as co-sponsors of this resolution. Before the chair entertains debate on this resolution, at this time the chair would ask those members who have sought permission to be added as a co-sponsor of this resolution to please press your recognition light so you can be taken down by the clerk. Have all members who wish to be added as co-sponsors of this resolution pressed your light? The chair wants to give the clerk adequate time. Clerk has recorded the names of all members seeking to be added. As a co-sponsor of this resolution, all members can turn recognition lights off at this time. The question before the House is the adoption of the resolution. Are there members who wish to speak to the adoption of the resolution? Chair will assume that any lights remaining on are members wishing to speak to the resolution. The lady from the 32nd, Douglas Staggers. Okay, all lights now are off. Are there members who wish to speak to adoption of the resolution? If not, then the question before the House is the adoption of the resolution as read by the clerk. A roll call has been demanded. Is the demand sustained? The demand is sustained. Those in favor of adoption of the resolution will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on the question. There are 94 ayes, 4 nays, and 2 members absent not voting. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, chair declares the resolution adopted. For what purpose does Lady from the 51st seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I tried to press my recognition button to get my name on the resolution.
Are there objections to the lady's name being added? None are heard. The lady's name will be added to that list. Further reading of resolutions.
House Concurrent Resolution 100 requesting the Joint Standing Committee on Government Finance study existing policies and programs available to assist working age individuals with disabilities.
Lady in the 49th. Further reading of resolutions.
House Concurrent Resolution 101, Claude Markle Hill.
Are there further resolutions? If not, petitions. Yes, House Resolution 100 will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization, then the Committee on Rules. HCR 101 will be referred to the Committee on Technology and Infrastructure, then the Committee on Rules. Petitions.
Delegate Hansen presents a petition calling for a legislative study of creating a state bank of West Virginia for the purpose of investing in the people of West Virginia.
The petition will be received and will be referred to the Committee on Finance. Are there further petitions? If not, motions. The gentleman from the 36th, Douglas Robbins, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move we discharge House Bill 4418. This bill is regarding funds received by the Attorney General from drug manufacturer settlement proceeds.
The gentleman's motion is that House Bill 4418 be discharged from which committee?
That would be your Committee on Finance.
The Committee on Finance. The motion is that House Bill 4418 be discharged from the Committee on Finance. For what purpose does Lady from the 51st seek recognition?
Thank you. In addition, I was sitting in my chair and pushed green, and my vote did not record on the resolution.
This was on the resolution just voted upon?
Yes.
Without objection, the lady's vote will be recorded. No objection is heard. The lady's preferences will be noted. Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I move we table the motion to discharge House Bill 4418.
The lady from the 49th has moved that the motion to discharge the House Bill 4418 from the Committee on Finance be laid upon the table. Those in favor of that motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed will say no. No. Ayes appear to have it. Ayes have it. Chair declares that motion adopted. Are there further motions? Bills introduced. Unfinished business. Bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 209 relating to annexation by minor boundary adjustments.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection and recognizes the lady from the 3rd, Delegate Storch, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. West Virginia currently has 3 methods to effect annexation: through vote, through petition, and by minor boundary adjustment. The last is the only one that's affected by this bill. Senate Bill 209 requires that all parties in the additional territory to be annexed by minor boundary adjustment provide an affidavit that they consent to be included in the annexation. Provides if the County Commission determines that the annexation could be efficiently and cost-effectively accomplished under one of the other 2 methods of annexation, or that the application is otherwise defective, they must deny the application, stating the reasons for the denial. And finally, the bill prohibits a municipality from reapplying for annexation by minor boundary adjustment for 2 years after a denial of an application, except when directed by a circuit court. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? The gentleman, the 59th, Douglas Kumps, recognized.
Permission to speak on the bill?
Yes, gentleman's recognized. Proceed.
I understand the motivation of Senate Bill 2009. However, at the request of the town of Hedgesville, Class 4 municipality, which is in my district, I'm asking this bill be rejected. The last minor adjustment that the town of Hedgesville did was to change the town boundary so it did not pass directly through the town cemetery. After that action was taken, and to this date, there's been no complaints from any of the dead people. Essentially, the town of Hedgesville feels that this bill is just too much dadgum government, and I ask a no.
The gentleman, the 60th, Douglas Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will Madam Chair please yield?
Sure.
Ma'am, may I give you a scenario real quick and then ask how this bill would affect it?
Sure.
Thank you. Were a municipality to attempt to incorporate an industry or a business into its tax base by perhaps drawing a loop on a map around that business, would that business have any recourse given the way this bill is written now?
They would have to provide their approval of being included.
They would have to approve of it. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman, the 67th, Douglas Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rarely do I find myself in philosophical company with my friend from Hedgesville over there, but I think he's right about this. My particular concern is that Jefferson County is one county, and I think the only county that has taken advantage of a provision in the law, which is, you can read it in the bill, which refers to an urban growth boundary. And after much weeping and gnashing of teeth over the course of a year, the municipalities and the county commission finally agreed on a system. I believe this bill upsets that system, so I personally will have to vote against it. Thank you.
The gentleman, the 56th, Douglas Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentlelady yield?
Does the lady in the third, Douglas Storch, yield for a question?
Yes.
Thank you. If this bill becomes law, if someone wants to become a part of a municipality by choice, they are allowed to do that. That's correct?
Yes.
And if, like in a subdivision of people want to join, they can do that by vote.
Yes.
Is that correct? Thank you.
Are there other members who wish to speak to passage of the bill? Does the lady wish to close debate on the bill? If not, then the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 94 ayes, 5 nays, and 1 member absent not voting. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 209.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I move the bill take effect from passage.
The lady from the 49th moves that the bill be made effective from passage. Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 97 ayes, 2 nays, and 1 member absent not voting. 2/3 of members elected having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 339, authorizing DHHR promulgate legislative rules.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection. The gentleman from the 28th, Douglas Pack, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 339 is the DHHR rules bundle. It contains all of the health rules that have been promulgated by DHHR. A variety of issues are addressed, from medical cannabis primary care grants and the collection of overdose data. There is an extensive and thorough abstract in the system which details all of the changes provided in the rules. Additionally, we have here all 1,354 pages of the rules, and I would be happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to passage of the bill? If not, then those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On the question, there are 93 ayes, 6 nays, and 1 member absent not voting. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 339.
Are there amendments to the title?
Committee on Judiciary moves to amend the title.
The question before the House is the adoption of the Judiciary title amendment as just read by the clerk. Those in favor of adoption of the title amendment will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares the title amendment adopted. The title as amended by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I move the bill take effect from passage.
The lady from the 49th moves that the bill be made effective from passage. Those in favor of the motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 94 ayes, 5 nays, and 1 member absent not voting. 2/3 of members elected having voted in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4001.
Lady of the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be postponed 1 day.
Lady from the 49th moves that the bill be postponed by 1 day. Those in favor will please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares the motion adopted. Further action on the bill will be postponed 1 day. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4015 relating to broadband enhancement and expansion.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection and recognizes the gentleman from the 16th, Doug Linville, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 4015 relating to broadband enhancement and expansion, better known as Broadband 4. As drafted, the bill permits the existing insurance fund to ensure additional broadband internet service. The bill includes the language sought to fix issues relating to rights-of-way arising from the confluence of the Dig Once bill and the Division of Highways rights-of-way bill, which both ran 2 years ago. The bill establishes a shot clock for highways to approve or deny permits within 60 days of submitting a complete permit, and a 30-day shot clock for Division of Highways approval or denial of a resubmittal, and establishes a 14-day Division of Highways district level construction approval deadline after an initial permit approval. It makes applications for installation in Division of Highways rights-of-way be noticed to the Broadband Enhancement Council, and which will provide written certification to the Division of Highways. The Broadband Enhancement Council is given responsibility for ensuring compliance with this section and will provide the division and the applicant with certificate of compliance. It rewrites the section on in-kind compensation to note that if the division must, by federal authority, receive compensation for right-of-way access, then it shall be in the form of in-kind compensation. In-kind compensation is now to be limited to being used only for state purposes. Finally, a provision for allocating value between multiple carriers is added, requiring that telecommunications carriers sharing a telecommunications facility share the obligation of compensating the division on a fair, reasonable, and equitable basis, taking into consideration the proportionate uses and benefits to be derived by each telecommunications carrier from the facilities installed under the agreements. Participating telecommunications carriers bear joint and several liability for the obligations owed to the Division of Highways, and Division of Highways has the right to review and audit the records and contracts of and among the participating carriers to ensure compliance. It allows Division of Highways to enter into an agreement and issue a permit to allow any carrier to use excess telecommunications facilities owned or controlled by the division, subject to the provisions of the Vertical Real Estate Management and Availability Act. It allows Division of Highways to transfer or assign the ownership, control, or any rights related to any in-kind compensation or excess telecommunications facilities owned or controlled by the division to any other state agency with written approval of the governor.
The Division of Highways Commissioner shall establish a policy to provide for installation of conduit on bridges during construction, repair, or other projects where installation thereof is not restricted or unreasonably hindered by federal regulation. The governor will now appoint the chair of the Broadband Council with the advice and consent of the Senate. A new subsection has been added requiring all agencies with permit review or approval authority to provide all necessary information to the council to determine the feasibility and federal allowability of creating advanced regulatory environment analysis maps or area maps. Area maps will pre-survey likely routes for middle-mile fiber infrastructure expansion so that all relevant information can be included in a centralized GIS mapping system to be maintained by the Council for utilization by the private sector when extending new fiber infrastructure. Finally, the bill then enacts the Vertical Real Estate Management and Availability Act. This requires the Department of Administration to coordinate with the governor to seek proposals to manage state-owned vertical real estate. The bill then establishes how the vertical real estate is to be managed, and it defines vertical real estate as any structure that is suitable for the mounting of communications equipment and the associated ground facilities. Mr. Speaker, as Intuit Chairman Brad Smith told us yesterday, change can happen to you or change can happen through you. This bill recognizes that there is no silver bullet to broadband expansion and enhancement or adoption. So we'll try silver buckshot. This legislation seeks to provide a more expeditious path for providers to bring high-speed internet and cellular coverage and much more. I hope that this bill can be our next step in having change happen through West Virginia instead of to West Virginia. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? The gentleman, the 60th, Douglas Wilson, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the indulgence of the House, I'd like to request clarification of the status of House Bill 4001.
Yeah, the status of House Bill 4001 is that it has been postponed one day. A number of members approached the chair about the offering of amendments. The chair has reviewed all those amendments and wanted to get them filed in the system for members to review before the bill was actually put forward for passage.
Yes, sir. With general right of amendment?
I'm sorry?
Is it held over with general right of amendment?
Yes, sir, it was. The bill was advanced with the general right to amend. The chair thought since it was advanced with the general right to amend, it was unfair to simply bring it back to the body and spring it on third reading in that posture. The question before the House is on passage of committee substitute for House Bill 4015. Are there members who wish to speak to passage of the bill? If not, then those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Still a little bit of time left. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 98 ayes, 1 nay, and 1 member absent not voting. The majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4015.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, then the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4039, providing limitations on nuisance actions against fire department and emergency medical services.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection and recognizes the gentleman, the 27th, Douglas Schott, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hope that wasn't contagious. This bill provides additional protections to fire departments and EMS stations with fixed sirens. Specifically, it provides that a person may not maintain a nuisance action for noise against a fire department or emergency medical services station located in the vicinity of that person's property for noise generated by a fixed siren if the fire department or emergency medical services station siren was installed prior to the date that the person acquired his or her property. A person who owns property in the vicinity of a fire department or emergency medical services station siren that was installed after that person acquired the property may maintain a nuisance action for the noise, but only if the action is brought within 2 years after the installation of the siren. Mr. Speaker, that's a summary of the bill. I urge its passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? The lady with 32nd, Douglas Staggers.
Chairman, yield.
Yes, I will.
How many fire departments still have fixed sirens? I'm not aware of any in Raleigh, Fayette. Is this a big issue, and do you have a number for me?
I don't have a number. I assume it's a big enough issue that somebody went to the trouble of having a bill prepared, yes.
Yeah, we notify everybody through their phone systems, and if we increase the broadband coverage for West Virginia, that would probably take care of the problem.
I assume that's possible, but I wouldn't stick my neck out on that one.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are there other members who wish to speak to passage of the bill? If not, then the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 96 ayes, 3 nays, and 1 member absent not voting. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4039.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, then the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4155.
Lady in the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to postpone action 1 day.
Lady in the 49th asks unanimous consent to postpone action 1 day on committee substitute for House Bill 4155. Are there objections? Chair hears no objection. Action will be postponed 1 day. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4422, the Patient Brokering Act.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection. Delegate Capito to explain the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, everybody. The Patient Brokering Act deals with activities that are unfortunate. In West Virginia, we have situations where individuals are referring and delivering patients to certain treatment facilities in exchange for fees or payment of some kind. The bill before you seeks to eliminate that practice so that we're not shopping our most vulnerable around to treatment centers throughout the state. And it prohibits specifically acts that are intended to derive any benefit or profit from referral of a patient to a healthcare provider or facility, and establishes criminal penalties for persons and business entities engaged in unlawful patient brokering. Mr. Speaker, I'm available for questions. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? The lady in the 32nd, Douglas Staggers.
I promise to quit asking questions, but the gentleman does yield. Is this not covered by the U.S. SLAPP Act already?
No, ma'am.
And what in the SLAPP Act is not covered?
I am not a SLAPP expert, but I'm certain that we are probably trying to close loopholes that the Act does not cover with this Act before you.
The gentleman 17th, Douglas Rohrbach.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to stand and rise in support of this bill, and I'm just going to tell you why we need it. Recently in Huntington, we had 20 people show up on a bus from Tulsa, Oklahoma to seek services that can't prove it, but there's a high likelihood of suspicion these were brokered patients. If you look at what's been going on in the state of Florida, Google this up, you'll see tremendous problems. About 20 people were recently charged in a federal indictment there. This is real, it is going on, and I think we all want to take care of the people in our communities that have problems. But to think that this needs to be a tremendous growth industry, that we're going out and getting patients from all around this country to come in here, I don't think that's what any of us want, because it is overwhelming the social support services in my community, and I would challenge you and a lot of the other people in this chamber's communities. So this is a necessary bill, and I urge adoption. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Are there other members who wish to speak to passage of the bill? If not, then does the gentleman wish to close debate on the bill? The gentleman from 35th, Douglas Capito. If not, then the question is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 99 ayes, 0 nays, and 1 member absent not voting. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4422.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the acts to the House, to the Senate, request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4514, permitting the use of leashed dogs to track mortally wounded deer or bear.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears none and recognizes the gentleman of the 11th, Delegate Atkinson, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill adds a new code section to provide that a person who is legally hunting and reasonably believes he or she has mortally wounded a deer or bear may use leashed dogs to track and locate the mortally wounded deer or bear. This bill also permits hunters to use a dog handler to track and locate the mortally wounded deer or bear. The bill requires that the hunter of the dog handler to maintain physical control of the leashed dogs at all times, and provides that a hunter who uses a dog handler must accompany the handler, and only the hunter may kill the mortally wounded deer or bear. The bill requires any dog handler providing tracking services for profit to be licensed as an outfitter or guide. This bill also amends the code section pertaining to dogs chasing deer. Under the revised code section, a natural resources officer shall take into possession any dog known to have hunted or chased deer. This bill provides that if the owner of the dog can be determined, the dog shall be returned to the owner. And if the owner of the dog cannot be determined, the natural police officer shall deliver the dog to the appropriate county humane officer or facility. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? The gentleman at 29th, Delegate Steele.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm really glad to see that we got this bill done. I had a similar bill, and I want to thank the chairman for incorporating some of what was in my bill into this bill, and as well as Delegate Seipolt for really bringing all that together. This is a really good bill. It's going to help out a lot of hunters across the state, but especially in my area. So I want to thank you guys and urge everyone to support the bill. Thank you.
Are there other members who wish to speak to the bill? If not, the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 95 ayes, 2 nays, and 3 members absent not voting. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4514.
Are there amendments to the title?
Delegate Atkinson moves to amend the title.
The question before the House is the adoption of the title amendment. Those in favor of the title amendment will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it, and the chair declares the title amendment adopted. The title as amended by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4529, relating to the collection of assessments and the priority of liens on property within a resort area.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection and recognizes the gentleman of 27th, Delegate Schott, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 4529 is focused on liens for assessments on real property which is located within a resort area district. It's consistent with the long-established real estate principle, first in time, first in line. Currently, West Virginia Code Section 72522 allows for assessment liens to be recorded on real property within a resort area district and to have priority over all other liens except for 2 categories. 1, land tax liens, and 2, prior recorded assessment liens. The bill would add a third exception to the types of liens that over which a newly recorded lien would not have priority. And the new exception is for lien creditors, including any lien creditor secured by a deed of trust, which have been recorded before the new assessment lien was recorded. Mr. Speaker, that's a summary of the bill. I urge its passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to passage of the bill? If not, those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 96 ayes, 0 nays, and 4 members absent not voting. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4529.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, then the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4589, conducting study for an appropriate memorial for West Virginians killed in the War on Terror.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection and recognizes the gentleman from the 53rd, Delegate Jennings, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill directs the Commission on the Arts to oversee a study for an appropriate memorial for West Virginians killed in the War on Terror, including but not limited to those killed in Iraq and Afghanistan, and directing the Commission to consult with veterans groups, Gold Star Mothers, and the Capitol Building Commission on an appropriate design of the memorial. We would like for your acceptance of this bill.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? The gentleman from the 37th, Delegate Pushkin, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd just like to briefly explain to the body where exactly the request for this bill came from. And about a week or so, maybe a couple weeks before the session started, a friend of mine who was actually a former Republican candidate for House of Delegates in the 35th District and a veteran named Calvin Grimm who served in Iraq in 2006-2007 as a intelligence analyst with the Air Force. He set up a meeting, asked if I would meet with members of the Gold Star Mothers, and mainly the president of the West Virginia chapter, who's Ms. Shirley White, who I believe now resides in Tucker County. And what they asked for was how they could accomplish just expanding the present war memorial we have on the Capitol grounds to also memorialize their kids. And I know that the gentleman from the 60th mentioned when he met Ms. White just a week or so ago that she came to the Capitol wearing 2 dog tags. She lost 2 sons in the War on Terror. And what we decided was to just this simple bill that just doesn't have any money attached to it. It just starts the study. It has the Commission on Arts consult with the Capitol Building Commission to study and report back to us what could be done to expand the war memorial that we have here, even if it's just benches around there, so when the Gold Star Mothers come to the Capitol, they have an appropriate place to honor and remember their children. So I hope this is something we can all vote for, and I hope to have a unanimous vote on this. And I thank the Gold Star Mothers and Shirley White, also Mr. Grimm, who brought this to our attention. And I'd especially like to thank the chairs for committees on Homeland Security and Veterans Affairs for running the bill, and also the chair of GovOrg for allowing for the second reference to be dispensed with, and so we could get it to the floor and vote on it. Thank you.
The gentleman from the 60th, Doug Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank members of the House for considering this proposal. Especially like to thank my friend for proposing it. And if I may, I would like to recommend that we consider, rather than recognizing our friends who've lost their lives under the term global war on terror, that rather it be by the name of the operations, Operation New Dawn, Iraqi Freedom, Enduring Freedom, and such as that. I thank you for your time and your consideration, sir.
Are there other members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 96 ayes, 0 nays, and 4 members absent not voting. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4589.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4593, authorizing the assignment of poll workers to serve more than one precinct under certain circumstances.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection. The gentleman 13th, Douglas Higginbotham, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Committee substitute for House Bill 4593 seeks to provide greater flexibility in the assignment of poll workers. Currently in state code, it only allows for an election worker to work for one standard receiving board. This bill would allow for the clerk of the county commission to assign a member of one precinct standard receiving board to simultaneously serve on the standard receiving board of up to 3 precincts in the polling places, only if they are located in the same physical building or facility. And for a reference, there are over 1,700 precincts in West Virginia, each with their own standard receiving board of 5 poll workers, and they each have to have that number at 5. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? The gentleman, the 66th, Douglas Espinosa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our youngest daughter is a poll worker and would ask for a ruling under Rule 49.
Yes, under that set of circumstances, it would be the ruling of the chair that the gentleman would belong to a class of greater than 5 and therefore would be directed to vote.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Do other members wish to speak to passage of the bill? If not, then the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 95 ayes, 0 nays, and 5 members absent not voting. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4593.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, then the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4594, allowing poll workers to be appointed to work in precincts outside their county.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection. The gentleman 13th, Douglas Higginbotham, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Committee substitute for House Bill 4594 seeks to allow elections such as poll workers to work in precincts outside of their county in order to provide greater flexibility in obtaining poll workers, and also adds an exception for who may be an elected official. Long story short, this basically says that if one county has an excess number of poll workers, they are permitted to share those poll workers with neighboring counties if there's a shortage. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Gentleman, the 66th.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. As I shared, a family member who does serve as a poll worker could potentially be assigned to a precinct in a neighboring county. Would ask for a ruling under Rule 49.
Yes, under that set of facts, it would be the ruling of the chair that the gentleman would still be a member of a class of greater than 5 and therefore would be directed to vote.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Do other members wish to speak to passage of the bill? If not, then the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Lady in the 42nd, your vote's not registered. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 96 ayes, 0 nays, and 4 members absent not voting. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4594.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, then the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4697, removing the restriction that a mini distillery use raw agricultural products originating on the same premises.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection and recognizes the gentleman, the 35th, the Capito, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Currently, in dealing with mini distilleries, there's a requirement that 25% of the raw agricultural product that goes into the product that comes out of the mini distillery must be produced on the premises of the distillery. We were finding that many distilleries were having trouble getting up and started with this requirement, especially in urban areas. So this takes out the 25% provision of that bill, or of that law. And Mr. Speaker, I'm available for questions, and I urge passage.
The question is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to passage of the bill? If not, those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 85 ayes, 10 nays, and 5 members absent not voting. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4697.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4747, extending electronic submission of various applications and forms for nonprofit and charitable organizations, professionals, and licensees.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection. The gentleman from the 45th, Douglas Martin, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to continue implementation of the provisions of West Virginia Code 31D131 by removing certain unnecessary or redundant requirements to allow for electronic submission of various applications and forms for nonprofit and charitable organizations, professionals, and licensees. These changes are consistent with existing businesses and licensing electronic filing processes and capabilities now available through the Secretary of State's office's one-stop web portal, which was created the year 2017 and has been modernized to allow for full implementation of the law. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to passage of the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 96 ayes, 0 nays, and 4 members absent not voting. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4747.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4749, providing more efficient application processes for private investigators, security guards, and firms.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection. The gentleman from 56, Douglas Howe, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to allow private investigators, security guards, and private investigator or security guard firms to obtain liability insurance in lieu of a surety bond, removes unnecessary requirements for submitting fingerprints and photographs of applicants and employees to the Secretary of State for each application, increases the amount of the surety bond, and to increase the licensure renewal term of a private investigator, security guard, and private investigator and or security guard firms from 1 year to 2. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to passage of the bill? If not, those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 96 ayes, 0 nays, and 4 members absent not voting. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4749.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4777, relating to the right of disposition of remains.
Question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection and recognizes the gentleman of the 35th, Douglas Capito, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to add adult grandchildren to the list of individuals that can be tasked with the disposition of remains. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to passage of the bill? If not, those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 96 ayes, 0 nays, and 4 members absent not voting. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4777.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, then the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4864, relating to performance reviews of state agencies and regulatory boards.
Question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there objections having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection, recognizes the gentleman from the 45th, Douglas Martin, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to include an analysis of the rules and procedures of the agency and the fees set by rule during agency and board audit reviews to determine whether the agency or board is exercising improper powers, exceeding its statutory authority, operating under improper procedures, or charging inappropriate fees, and make appropriate recommendations to the legislature. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? The gentleman from 36, Douglas Robinson, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Vice Chair yield?
Vice Chairman does not yield. Okay. Vice Chairman does not.
Mr. Speaker, who should we address questions to the bill to if the chairman is unwilling to describe the bill that he's put on his agenda?
The gentleman could seek any member.
Will the sponsor of the bill yield?
Chair does not have the bill up here. Who is the sponsor of the bill?
I believe the chairman.
The gentleman from 56, is the gentleman the sponsor? Okay, the sponsor apparently does not yield.
Mr. Speaker, can you explain to us the necessity or the what the bill does and answer any questions of that?
The gentleman from the 45th has done that.
Can you explain to me what the additional parameters we have in this that we don't have in rulemaking authority?
The chair does not have the bill up here.
So we don't have anyone of the chairman or anyone that can answer those questions. Thank you.
Apparently the chair does not yield for question. Does the gentleman wish to close debate on the bill? The gentleman does not wish to close debate on the bill. The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 65 ayes, 31 nays, and 4 members absent not voting. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4864.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4865, requiring certain boards that seek to increase a fee or seek to impose a new fee to also submit cost-saving measures.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection. The gentleman from 56, Douglas Howe, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to require certain boards that seek to increase a fee or seek to impose a new fee also submit cost-saving measures undertaken or proposed to be undertaken. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? The gentleman of 36, Douglas Robinson, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the lead sponsor yield?
The gentleman of 50, is the gentleman 15th the lead sponsor?
Yes.
Yes, the gentleman does yield.
Thank you, Doug. I appreciate that. Can you just explain to us how this would work? So anybody that comes to rulemaking with an increased fee would have to come with some representation of a fee decrease or a cost savings measure?
In rulemaking review committee, what happens many times is we'll be presented with a fee increase. Oftentimes with, this doesn't affect any budget or doesn't affect general revenue because we're special revenue. Well, many times in rulemaking review committee, we have to ask multiple questions of, well, what is your budget? How much do you have in your surplus account? Where's it at? And this is just trying to get to an idea of, hey, show us why you need this fee increase. This is just a request for more information. I believe it's allowing the Legislative Rulemaking Review Committee to make a better decision whenever they come for a fee increase, so that before we establish a higher fee on our constituents.
So basically, because it's not general revenue, we don't have the information available, so we're asking them to bring some extra data to us.
Well, that's the excuse for not providing the information many times in our Rulemaking Review Committee.
Okay, thank you.
The gentleman 30th, Doug Bates.
Will the gentleman continue to yield?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to clarify, are these Chapter 30 boards as well, professional boards?
The majority of the time, Chapter 30 boards is the ones that this would apply
cover,
to.
yeah, so your professional boards.
This just applies
Doctors,
to chapter,
nurses.
This just applies to Chapter 30. So obviously there's Chapter 29, your miscellaneous boards, your others.
The lady in the 51st, Doug Fleshauer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman continue to yield?
Reluctantly, yes.
Really? Well, we served together on this committee. I just was trying to think hypothetically. So if a board, say, had a lawsuit against them and they had to increase fees because of that, we've had that occur in the past, that was their reason for seeking fees. And would they still have to is this a mandatory submission of cost-saving measures, or could they say, we are increasing this fee to cover this unexpected expenditure and there is no room to have a cost? Would they be able to say that?
And I assume, since it's a mandatory, they would just say, we have not done this because...
They'll be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, they could just as easily say, we have not done this.
Right.
It's not
okay, I
saying
just
that
wanted
they
to
have
make
to do
sure that it wasn't mandatory. They had to say that. Okay, so that wasn't so bad.
Do other members wish to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 92 ayes, 4 nays, and 4 members absent not voting. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4865.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4956, relating generally to the partition of real property.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection. The gentleman, the 27th, Doug Schott, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to enact a simplified version of the Uniform Partition of Heirs Property Act. You may recall that a modified version of that act passed out of the House during the last legislative session, but did not become law and was not acted on by the Senate. This new abbreviated version is modeled after certain provisions in the Uniform Partition of Heirs Property Act. By way of context, tenants in common are vulnerable because any undivided or any individual co-tenant can force a partition. In some cases, real estate investors may acquire a small undivided share of a property and file a partition action to force the sale of the whole parcel. Using a partition by sale, an outside investor can acquire an entire parcel, sometimes at a price below its fair market value, through a public auction. This new bill adds new statutory rights into the partition statute. Under the bill, an owner will have a right to a professional appraisal to help determine the fair market value of the property before it is sold. An owner will also have the right to an open market sale of the property by a real estate broker with a reserve price before it can be auctioned. When judges select partition alternatives, several new factors are to be considered during the partition cases. And finally, an undivided interest in minerals cannot be sold in a partition if it is covered by a valid lease which was negotiated through reasonable, good faith efforts before the partition action is filed. Owners of these mineral interests will have their interests protected from sale when they have demonstrated their willingness to develop their minerals. The bill preserves the right of a co-tenant to demand partition and to sell their interest in property, but also attempts to preserve the other owner's wealth by adding these rights which are not currently in the partition statute. These new protections will help ensure that owners in partition sales receive a fair market price for their property interest rather than having it sold at auction at below fair market value. Mr. Speaker, that's a summary of the bill. I urge its passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to passage of the bill? If not, those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 85 ayes, 11 nays, and 4 members absent not voting. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4956.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, then the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Are there further bills on third reading? If not, bills on second reading.
Senate Bill 573, supplementing, amending, and increasing appropriations of public monies for claims against the state.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 623, allow a non-citizen of U.S. be eligible for teaching certificate.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2321.
Lady from the 32nd, Doug Kessinger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to move the bill to third reading with the general right to amend.
Clerk will read the bill a second time.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2321, allowing workers' compensation benefits for first responders diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder.
Lady from the 32nd has asked that the bill be advanced to third reading with the general right to amend. Is there objection? Chair hears no objection. The bill will be so advanced. Next bill on second reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3098, allowing the same business owner to brew and sell beer to also distill and sell liquor.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4363, establishing the West Virginia Division of Natural Resources Police Officer Retirement System.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4408, requiring the State Board of Education to develop and implement an online database for employment of school principals.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4452, modifying the notice requirements for the redemption of delinquent properties.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4474, relating to peer-to-peer car sharing programs.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4522, allowing division to accept documents compliant with Real ID Act for proof of identity.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4523, removing the limitation of number of apprentice hunting and trapping licenses a person may purchase.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4557, relating to centers and institutions that provide the care and treatment of mentally ill or intellectually disabled individuals.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4634, Southern West Virginia Lake Development Study Commission Act.
Are there amendments?
Delegate Waxman moves to amend the bill on page 3, section 3, line 17, after the period, by inserting the following. The two research groups shall also investigate the economic growth potential that could result from the formation of one or more prosperity districts in the southern coalfield counties based on the Compact for American Prosperity State Initiative. And on page 3, section 3, line 21, after the period, by inserting the following. The studies conducted pursuant to this section shall also examine how the formation of one or more prosperity districts could facilitate economic growth in the southern coalfield counties and shall at a minimum address tax, regulatory, and property rights issues.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment as just read by the clerk. Yes, the gentleman from 26, Douglas Evans, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would request a ruling from the Speaker as to the germaneness of this amendment to the bill.
Chair will review it.
Bill.
House will please be in order. The chair has reviewed the bill and has reviewed the amendments. It is the opinion of the chair that the bill is rather narrow in scope, relates only to the study of a lake, and as the amendment exceeds the scope of the study of the lake proper and extends to areas beyond what would be encompassed by the lake, it would be the opinion of the chair that the point of order would be well taken. Are there other amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced. Next bill on second reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4645, establishing the Office of Regulatory and Fiscal Affairs under the Joint Committee on Government and Finance.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4737, clarifying student eligibility for state-sponsored financial aid.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4820, relating to inventory of firearms owned by state agencies.
Are there amendments?
Delegate Howe moves to amend the bill on page 49, section 7, line 159, after the word hunts, by striking out the word and inserting a new subdivision 31 to read as follows. 31. Exempt designated sections within the Division of Natural Resources from the requirement that all payments must be deposited in a bank within 24 hours for amounts less than $500, notwithstanding any other provisions of this code to the contrary, provided that such designated sections shall make a deposit in any amount no less than every 7 working days, and by renumbering the remaining sections accordingly.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment as just read by the clerk. The gentleman of 56, Delegate Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment adopts language from SB 487, which is on the governor's desk to avoid a code conflict. I urge adoption.
The question before the House then is the adoption of the amendment. Do other members wish to speak to the adoption of the amendment? If not, those in favor of the amendment will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares that amendment adopted. Are there further amendments?
Delegate Howe moves to amend the bill on page 50, section 1, after line 163, by inserting a new subdivision 32 to read as follows. 32. Cooperate with the State Resiliency Office to the fullest extent practicable to assist that office in fulfilling its duties.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment as just read by the clerk. The gentleman of 56, Delegate Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This adopts language from SB 586, which is on second reading in the Senate to avoid a code conflict. I urge adoption.
Are there other members who wish to speak to the amendment? If not, those in favor of the amendment will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares that amendment adopted. Are there further amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced to third reading. Are there further bills on second reading? If not, bills on first reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 657, allowing designation of tourism development districts.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3127, relating to the Secondary School Activities Commission and participation by homeschooled students.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4009, relating to the process for involuntary hospitalization.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4252, Board of Accountancy Board Rules and Rules of Professional Conduct.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4388, limiting the Alcohol Beverage Control Commissioner's authority to restrict advertising.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4530, authorizing daily passenger rental car companies to charge reasonable administrative fees.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4613, allowing the Division of Highways use money in the gas field highway repair and horizontal drilling waste study fund.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4626, West Virginia Development Achievements Transparency Act.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4688, creating the 4668, creating a misdemeanor crime of trespass for entering a structure that has been condemned.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4748, relating to the increase of fees that private non-government Rotary publics may charge for notarial acts.
The bill will be advanced. Are there further bills on first reading? If not, leaves of absence. Lady from the 32nd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For our colleague, Delegate Rodriguez.
Is there objection to a leave of absence being granted? The chair hears no objection. A leave of absence shall be granted. Remarks by members. The gentleman from the 36th, Delegate Robinson, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over the last couple years, those of you that have been here with us have heard me discuss my friend Ryan Brown. Ryan Brown and I, we met when we were about 3 years old. His mother was my babysitter. She had the rough job of trying to keep me in line at a young age, and you all can see how that worked out. Ryan and I went to elementary school just right across the river at Chamberlain Elementary School, and then we went on to Horseman, we went on to Capitol High School, and we went on to West Virginia University. Somewhere along that line, Ryan fell into addiction. He fell into the same thing that we've seen a lot of our community fall into during our drug crisis. In 2014, Ryan passed away. He was found in the Charleston Town Center and had overdosed and had passed away. And those of you know the further part of Ryan's story is that his mother has come around and has advocated for a number of prevention issues and recovery issues and things of that sort. In 2017, we named a prevention and recovery fund after Ryan Brown. Now, the sad part of this is Ryan Brown isn't a unique story. He just happened to have a very aggressive and very diligent mother who followed up after he passed away, which is why we have the Ryan Brown Addiction Recovery Fund. Now, the Ryan Brown Addiction Recovery Fund had money placed in it that came from settlement funds that were attributed to the scourge that drug manufacturers put on West Virginia, and they were won in that settlement. Now, at the time, those funds were placed in the Attorney General's accounts, and we in 2017, as a body, the legislature, went and removed those funds and created this account. At this point in time, we've seen multiple other settlements come through. And some of those settlements have provided funds to DHHR, to Department of Military Affairs, and there's also 1/3 of the most recent settlement funds that are sitting in the Attorney General's account right now. Now, if you speak to the Attorney General, if you go down and discuss it with him, he'll explain to you that there are administrative fees and other items that he has to pay for in his office. However, I will tell you that across the country, different states are trying to figure out what to do with these monies. Now, when we received the funds from the tobacco settlement years ago, those monies were wasted. They were put in various different accounts. There was limited accountability. And what we didn't do with tobacco settlement funds that were supposed to replenish the counties and state governments that had to expend the monies to get people to recover and people's health care, we spent it on other items. We wasted that money. And now what I'd ask you to do is concentrate on today's settlement funds, on the opioid settlement funds. Now, I had passed out to you an article from the West Virginia Gazette-Mail from yesterday evening. The attorney generals from across the country that are involved have turned down $18 billion. Now, this is in discussion and formation of that settlement. And what I would tell you and what is important about this article is there will be other settlement funds that come to West Virginia. And what we cannot let happen is to let those funds sit in an account in the Attorney General's office instead of attacking the drug crisis that we have at our feet. Now, I'll also tell you about a comment from our Congressman McKinley. Congressman McKinley introduced legislation at the federal level that would force all states to account for this money and to make it go towards prevention and recovery that it was designed to help. Now, Congressman McKinley makes a statement that in the past, the same statement I've made, that the tobacco settlement monies were wasted. And we don't want to create the same problem and fall into the same issue that we came from before. So earlier today, you heard me make a motion for a discharge of this bill. I wanted to take the time and explain to you what that issue was and why we would discharge it. Now, with this explanation, the bill would cause all monies from opioid settlements or drug manufacturer settlements to go to the Ryan Brown Fund. The Ryan Brown Fund would attack these prevention measures, these recovery measures. So with that, I would move that we take my motion to discharge House Bill 4418 off the table. And I would ask for the yeas and nays, Mr. Speaker.
The chair will put that question to a vote, but first owes an apology to the gentleman from the 37th, Delegate Pushkin, on the similar motion that the gentleman made the last day that the House was in order. The chair erroneously ruled on the gentleman's motion as having not been in order at that time and delayed consideration of that motion to miscellaneous business. Chair is informed by the clerk that there is an inconsistency in the rules. Chair apologizes to the gentleman for misruling on that motion earlier. The question now is the gentleman's motion from the 36th that the motion be taken from the table to discharge what's the number? House Bill 4418 from the Committee on Finance. The question is on the motion to take from the table that motion to discharge. So those in favor of the motion to take from the table will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The roll call has been demanded. Is the demand sustained? Demand is sustained. Those in favor of the motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. The gentleman 19th, Delegate Hicks, your vote is not registered. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On the question, there are 37 ayes, 57 nays, 6 members absent not voting, less than a majority in favor. The motion is lost. Further remarks by members? The lady from the 4th, Delegate Zukoff, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we're coming to the end of our time that we can make remarks by members, I've been thinking about this and actually not feeling very well, so bear with me. But I wanted to talk about roads in our state. We have significant issues, I know, around the state, but in District 6, in the Northern Panhandle, where the majority of the gas and oil business is at this time, we still have tremendous problems up there. I want to say that we appreciate everything that's been done by the Department of Highways workers. They work their tails off to get things done. They're very responsive when we put in requests for repairs. But this is an ongoing matter that we have to deal with. I've been dealing this week with 2 slips caused by a lot of rain and the heavy truck traffic that we have in the oil and gas industry. And I'm all for the oil and gas industry. I oftentimes get accused because of my stance on taking care of the roads that I'm against oil and gas, and that couldn't be further from the truth. I appreciate the money that it brings into our state. I appreciate the good jobs that it provides to the people in my district, and we're very appreciative of that. But we really pay a large price with the way that our secondary roads, the conditions of our secondary roads. District 6 comes in number 9th out of 10th in the district funding in this state. We have a bill before us that's been parked in Finance Committee, 4120, that would really ask for the Department of Highways, who has agreed that they follow no formula when they come up with the funding for these roads, that they take a look at that and take a look at the number of heavy trucks that are on the roads. I have 2 roads that are closed in our county right now because of the slips that have been caused by the heavy traffic. One of those roads has students on them with some families who don't have reliable vehicles, and the children are now being driven by their parents to the school bus. The children on that lane that don't have reliable transportation are missing a great amount of school, and I know we all care about that. So I think that it's time. We know that, and just to give you some examples, in the Department of Highways budget request this year, they have estimated there's 1,600 slips left in West Virginia that need fixed. They fixed 300 of those slips last year. This isn't an exaggeration. We have 600 road slips in Marshall County. And if you don't think that's part of the oil and gas industry issue, you're sadly mistaken. We need some teeth in our laws with some regulations that the Department of Highways can have when these roads aren't being fixed, that there's something they can do about it. Now, in this case, I just did talk to Department of Highways, and 2 of the companies are stepping up because the roads have been closed. They can't get to their wells to continue the work. They're going to be fixing these 2 roads that I spoke of this week. But it's an ongoing battle. We have roads closed all the time. It's a real inconvenience, and it's a safety issue. The main calls that I get regarding these road slips are from school bus drivers. We have slips sometimes that the only way that the Department of Highways can keep these roads open and safe for the buses is to take an excavator out and get some of the hillside out and put heavy gravel down so that the buses have enough clearance to get through. These are not safe conditions. And I would just ask all of you to keep this in consideration as we determine what bills are going to be driven the rest of this session, because we don't have very many days left. And to consider that we hold Department of Highways accountable for coming up with some additional regulations that will help keep this from happening, and changing some of those requirements. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the time.
The gentleman from the 43rd, Doug Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Clayton Stanley Jr. is a bright, energetic, and happy 6-year-old boy. He started school in a new school this year. He was so excited, as were his parents. However, before Clayton could walk into school and, learn, that excitement was squashed, sadly by an administrator who demanded that he cut his hair. Clayton is a young man of color. He has grown his locks since he was 4 years old, and he was very proud of them. He was proud of his hair, his heritage, and he wanted to make sure that he wanted to be. He looked up to his godfather, who just so happened to be an NFL player, and he wanted to look like him. Mr. Speaker, Clayton is not alone, and students of color across the country and right here in West Virginia are being discriminated against because of their natural hair. In fact, right here in West Virginia, we have students like Matthew Moore, who were told that if they wanted to play basketball, they had to cut their hair. Older folks of color are also being denied jobs, opportunities to work, to apply for jobs, unless they cut their hair. We need to stop this discrimination right now in this state. We have a bill, House Bill 4508, to do just that. You'll see this on your desk. I'm happy to sponsor this. We should not be denying somebody access to play a sport, to go to school, or for a job simply because of their natural curls, dreadlocks, twists, braids. That does not have any place in West Virginia. To my friends of color with their natural hair, I want to say to you, in the words of Bruno Mars, you're amazing just the way you are. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from the 51st, Doug Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Forever is a long time, and there are a class of chemicals called forever chemicals that don't degrade in the environment and that unfortunately are probably in every one of our bloodstreams. And these chemicals are toxic. We had an opportunity to address these chemicals with the Clean Drinking Water Act of 2020, but I'm afraid that the time may be short this session. Now, we have addressed many infrastructure issues that are important, including high-speed internet and roads. But I would submit to you that clean drinking water is also a very important infrastructure issue for the people of West Virginia. These forever chemicals have fancy names and acronyms. They're called PFAS, and they have other names. And they gained some notoriety due to the Dark Waters movie that came out recently. People in and around Wood County know all too well about the impacts of some of these chemicals. And the chemicals have also been detected in one of the springs that supplies water to the city of Martinsburg. And clean drinking water is an issue across the state. Just ask the people in Paden City who are dealing with access to clean drinking water today, and the people of Newburgh and Preston County who are also facing issues with clean drinking water. It's an infrastructure issue. It's one of the most important infrastructure issues we're dealing with. And unfortunately, with these forever chemicals, the federal government is dragging their feet. And that's why multiple states are taking it upon themselves to do the science and collect the information that's needed so that they can be properly addressed. As state by state collects information about these chemicals, what they're finding is they're more toxic than previously thought. These man-made chemicals that are not regulated at the current time. So it's my hope that West Virginia can be on the leading edge of this issue, even if we have missed the opportunity to address it this session, that we can address it as soon as possible so that we can identify where across West Virginia these chemicals have been used and are being discharged, and we could do whatever science is necessary so that we could protect the people of West Virginia. I think we owe it to the people of West Virginia who have already been sickened, and to the family members of those people in West Virginia who have already been killed by these chemicals to properly address these forever chemicals. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman to the fourth, Canestraro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just ask unanimous consent that the remarks by the gentlelady from the 4th and the gentleman from the 36th, 43rd, and 51st be printed in the appendix of the journal.
Are there objections? Chair hears no objection. The gentleman to the 16th, Doug Hornbuckle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I want to briefly revisit some comments that were made last week. I was talking about a certain issue in here, and I ventured to talk about the importance of communication, talking with one another, being inviting, making sure that we all have to at some times be uncomfortable to get comfortable. That's very, very important. Well, yesterday I had the privilege and the honor to be amongst the stars. The privilege and the honor to be amongst the stars. So we had a wonderful event down in Huntington, West Virginia. A wonderful event that featured 3 top-flight CEOs in the world. One of them, which is currently ranked the number 6 top president CEO. That included Brad Smith from Huntington, West Virginia, all right, went into it. That also had Shantu Narayan from Adobe, Daniel Schulman, all right, from PayPal, and the Nike CEO was unable to make it. But it was a packed house. It was wonderful. It was so important that it had my good buddy's mother there, Senator Capito. Absolutely. Our families go way back with basketball, you know that. We had Senator Manchin there. We had the Dr. Gee in the house from West Virginia University. We had 2 special folks from up here. We had the President of the Senate, and we had our guy, the Speaker, Mr. Roger Hanshaw. So it was a star-studded event. And it was about business and how do we move our state forward. Very, very interesting. And I had some key takeaways from that these billionaires, for the most part, echoed some of the things that I talked about last week. One of Brad's favorite books is Team of Rivals, and it talks about Abraham Lincoln, probably the best Republican ever. How he invited folks into his cabinet that were his rivals for the sole purpose of getting the better product for everybody. Because when you have people from opposing viewpoints, you can put a better product out there. I felt that very, very key from this distinct billionaire. One of the things that they stressed, it was a group of college students in there, and looking for employment and being an entrepreneur and doing these great things, the number one thing that they all talked about was critical thinking. Critical thinking skills. Brad also talked about the three things that he looks for when he's traveling the world and trying to bring more business back here. And he's trying to groom the young leaders of tomorrow. Three things. They are perseverance, humility, intellectual curiosity. Very, very important. Dan Schulman from PayPal. He talked about, before you work for him at PayPal, anybody, because his whole thing was, making financial transactions easier. No matter who you are, whether you're the janitor, senior level management, you have to live one day as a homeless person to be able to actually see what it's like, to be able to feel that. And I rise to you all today, not trying to discharge a fairness bill. I'm not trying to discharge another bill that has to do with discrimination. But we need to think about these things, because I think all the stars I were talking about, they were there for a reason. To figure out, how do we put West Virginia back on the map as the best state in the nation? And the common things amongst all these billionaires and world leaders was critical thinking. It was also, as Dan says, he helps his company by having the best health care out there, making sure they have stock in the company, making sure they have ownership. And then he ended it talking about being very diverse so all viewpoints. Black, white, Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter. Everybody can get together, you hash out your differences so you get the best product. And I'll also leave you all with this. Brad said one of the best things that he got from his father is you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman to the 67th, Dr. Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that the remarks of my good buddy, my sidekick here from Cabell, and also the remarks of the delegate from Monongalia, Mr. Hanson, be included in the appendix of the journal.
Are there objections? No objections are heard. Introduction of guests. Miscellaneous business. Lady in 32nd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move, subject to announcements, that the House adjourn until 11 a.m. on Thursday.
The lady in 32nd moves that, subject to announcements, the House stand adjourned.
Friday.
The House stand adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow.
Yes.
Are there announcements? The gentleman the 10th, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Finance will meet today at 3 p.m. in the House Finance Committee room. We will also begin our meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. The agenda will be posted. Thank you, Mr.
The gentleman the 35th, Capito.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Committee on the Judiciary will meet this afternoon at 2:45 in the committee room. The agenda has been posted for that meeting. Tomorrow morning, the committee will meet at 9 a.m. in the committee room, and the agenda for that meeting will be posted as well. Thank you very much.
The gentleman the 13th, Higginbotham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to request the availability of the chamber on Monday morning at 9 a.m. Yeah, 9 a.m.
The chair's advised there is a public hearing scheduled in the chamber at 9 a.m. on Monday morning.
That's ours, yeah. Yeah. Anyways, so.
Then it's available for your public hearing.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Education will have a public hearing at 9 a.m. on Monday on House Bill 4780. We will also be having an Education Committee meeting tonight at 5 p.m. and again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. The agenda is posted.
The gentleman, the 45th, Douglas Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Government Organization will meet tomorrow morning, February 21st at 9 a.m. in the House Government Organization Committee Room, 215 in the East Wing. The agenda will be posted. Thank you.
Lady with 32nd, Doug Kessinger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Rules will meet tomorrow, Friday, at 10:45 in the room behind the chamber.
The gentleman, the 12th, Douglas Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have some food over in the East Wing with Italian subs, chips, and drinks and cookies. Everyone's welcome. Thank you.
The gentleman, the 28th, Douglas Pack.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just for clarification, your Committee on Health and Human Resources will not meet today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman, the 42nd, Douglas Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We will do the photograph right after our floor session here today that we weren't able to do yesterday because I think our coach from the 16th was also checking in on the intern on his access and availability. So glad to have him back. So we will do the photo after floor today for anyone who was in the legislative basketball game. Thank you.
Are there further announcements? If not, the question is on the motion that the House stand adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares the motion adopted. The House is adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow.
After school.
That was fun.
After dinner.
Ooh, fun. That's kind of fun.
The fun never stops on PBS Kids.